us.
ESPN Podcasts, no matter what you're a fan of.
Welcome into the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast.
Hollywood mogul McConaughey. This is the kind of guest you're going to get on the SV Pod.
His reputation is destroyed. I don't feel sorry for Donald Sterling.
The final question comes from legend.
The legend that is Adam Schefter.
It's Julie Foudy. Simone Biles is in the house.
Listen to me now. Believe me later on.
This has been ESPN Daily. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
ESPN Podcasts, something for everyone. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The NBA playoffs and KJC.
He had 0 post-ups in game 1. 0 post-ups.
The best analysis.
So he is responding to the criticism.
Plenty of reaction.
About how soft he played in his style of play.
And don't miss what's coming up next.
When they play AD inside out, that's as good as this team can.
The NBA playoffs and Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday morning starting at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN.
WING 1410 Dayton. Dayton's ESPN Radio. It's live. It's local. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Kirkland and Summers.
Hey, welcome in. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. No baseball? Presented by Orion Sports Medicine. No baseball. Now I know how stay-at-home moms feel on, weather cancellations for their kids at school. It's like you had all these plans for the day, and now you're stuck with, all these things to do now. So that's kind of where we're at today. But welcome in. It's the Justin Kinner Show. I'm Justin Kinner. He's Kev Nash. The show brought to you by Orion Sports Medicine. And for a weird random day in June is like a slow sports month. June is like the weird month that you just kind of got to BS for a little bit to get through, because at least when you get to July, there's not a ton of news in July, but you feel like you're embarking on football. Once you get in July, you could at least say, hey, next month we got football. Even if it's preseason, it's just guys reporting to camp. The bottom line is that June is just kind of a weird, strange month. We just kind of hang around and hope that the Reds are interesting enough to get us through June, right? Well, today was a very odd and weird sports news day. I mean, it's just like, I'm literally watching and listening to shows all day where they're having to stop in their tracks to cover another breaking news moment. And probably one of the biggest breaking news moments of the day. It started with, of course, the shuffle of the Celtics. Danny Ainge stepping down and retiring as the general manager, as the what's his role, the general manager, whatever, for the Boston Celtics. And now Brad Stevens is stepping down as head coach, and he's going to resume
President
the duties
of basketball operations.
Yeah, it's all the same thing, right? Like, who knows what those titles mean? But Brad Stevens is going to step down now as the head coach of the Celtics, and he will resume the duties of Danny Ainge. And now they're looking for a new head coach. I thought that was pretty big and significant news out of the NBA. And then the biggest news of the day, one that really kind of hit hard a little bit to me, because the one thing I love about college sports, Kev, is that you're a fan of guys, or you have a connection with guys in college sports that you don't even realize you do, even if you don't like them. Like, you got to understand, like when Urban Meyer retired, the second time, or when he left Ohio State, even the haters of Urban Meyer, a piece of them left the game. Like, it's not when legends leave the game, even if you hated them. And this goes for when Tom Brady, I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but when Tom Brady retires, that's going to be a tough day. I don't want to see Tom Brady leave. I mean, right. I grew up watching Tom Brady and hating Tom Brady and rooting against Tom Brady. That stinks when guys like that leave. It's, Tim Duncan. I was never a big Tim Duncan guy, but when he retired, I was like, man, that's kind of sad. Like, I grew up watching Tim Duncan play. When Kobe retired, I was like, man, that got me. Roy Williams, college basketball legend, retired earlier this summer. I should say, I guess, spring. And that caught a lot of people by surprise, because there was no, swan song. There was no farewell tour. There was no, I'm going to come back for one more year. We'll line up a successor and kind of go for it was just deuces. I'm out. Like, that was Roy Williams. Now, probably, and that was one of the biggest names in college basketball history, as well as today's game especially. Now, the other breaking news today, of course, that happened, it was, none other than Coach Krzyzewski has announced that after 41 years as the head coach of the Duke Blue Devils, he's going to call it a career. Coach Krzyzewski has won 5 national championships, all with Duke. He has won over 1,000 games, over almost 1,100 games, all with Duke. And pretty much the entire success of that program has all come with him as the head coach of that program. In fact, when you look at the 41 seasons that Mike Krzyzewski has been the head coach of Duke, they've won 1,097 games, Kev. There's been 116 total seasons of Duke basketball. Outside of the Coach Krzyzewski years, they've won 1,100 games, 1,117. So in the 75 seasons without Coach K, they've won 1,100 games. And in the 41 years with Coach K, they've won the equivalent. And he's going to surpass that, this coming up season. When you look at the NCAA tournament appearances for the Duke Blue Devils, Coach K's made the NCAA tournament 35 times with the Duke Blue Devils. Duke only made it 8 times in the 75 years without Coach K. 12 Final Four appearances for the Duke Blue Devils with Coach K. Only 4 Final Four appearances without him, which, by the way, I think that's pretty impressive. I didn't realize that Duke had those runs even before him. But all 5 national championships for the Duke Blue Devils have come with Coach Krzyzewski. He is the Duke Blue Devils program. When you think of college basketball, like when I think of college football, I think of Nick Saban right away. That's the name and the face that comes to my mind right away. Even if Urban was the coach, as much as I love Ohio State, and even if Nick Saban, he's the face of college football. It's different than in the pros where the athletes, Tom Brady's the face of the NFL, Patrick Mahomes maybe the second face or maybe the premier face now, depending on how people view it of the NFL. The NBA, it's still LeBron, maybe Steph Curry. There's some stars emerging there. Baseball, we always talk. I don't know who the face of baseball is, to be honest with you. People want to say Mike Trout, but I don't think, I don't want to get in that conversation. College basketball, it's Coach K. No, it's not. I hate Coach K. But you know who Coach K is. Like, you don't have to like the face of the league, but as long as that face, when you think of that sport, that face is what comes to mind. Coach K is that. And I think this is a huge deal for college basketball. I think that he, outside of John Wooden, he is the best basketball coach of all time. Coach Krzyzewski is the second best college basketball coach of all time. And I think that this is a huge blow for college basketball. Roy Williams retiring was a big blow for college basketball, bidding farewell to Coach K after this year. I don't even know how much longer Boeheim has as far as that goes. So, once those guys are out, that's a huge chunk. That's almost we're talking close to 50 years for all those guys, not combined, but almost all of those guys have been at least 40 plus years. It is absolutely insane the amount of success that college basketball has had as a whole across the board for all teams, with those guys being the faces of college basketball. I think this is a huge deal. The reason Coach K to me is such a legend and such a big deal is because he is Duke basketball. Roy Williams was part of North Carolina, but he wasn't North Carolina. Dean Smith, North Carolina has won plenty of national championships before Roy Williams was there. Roy Williams just did what everyone else was doing there. Kansas has won championships with multiple coaches. Kentucky has won multiple national championships with multiple coaches. Duke is Duke because of Coach K. That's why I said it was kind of caught me by surprise. 116 years that Duke has been around. They've made it to 4 Final Fours without Coach K. They've made it to 12 with him. So I find that fascinating. Again, the 5 national championships. We don't know what that program is going to be without Coach K. Right. We could sit there and say that the brand is big and everything like that. We'll see. We'll find out. But North Carolina has proven that they can continue to go on after losing a legendary coach. We've seen North Carolina has lost many legendary coaches, and the beat keeps going. Kansas has done it. I don't even put Kansas as deep into the blue blood category as I do Duke and North Carolina and even Kentucky right now. But Kentucky's won multiple national championships with multiple coaches. Duke is Duke because of one man and one man only, and that is Coach Krzyzewski. North Carolina was already branded. All these other big programs were branded, and they had their base. Coach K was the base. He created the base, built the base, and then now it's stacked a mile high. Now it's absolutely insane. I hate to see him go. I know you're a Syracuse fan, so you're going to come at this with a different perspective, but I think even how much he has meant to the college basketball world. One more point on this, I will say. The NBA playoffs right now, we're tuning in to watch Dame Lillard in Portland, LeBron and the Lakers. We're watching the stars. Like, I can't – what's the most significant coach in the playoffs right now? I can't think of one. Like, I remember growing up, by the way, it was Phil Jackson. It was Pat Riley. Like, the coaches were personalities. Right. The NBA doesn't have any coaching personalities because that's how big the personalities are with the players. As far as college basketball goes, I'm tuning in to watch Boeheim against Coach K. I'm watching Roy Williams against Coach K. I want Duke and North Carolina, or Duke and Kentucky. Because the coaches, the NCAA tournament, to me, it's the coaching matchups. That's really what I tune in for, because again, everything else falls under the umbrella of the coaches. The NBA, the coaches are just they're puppeteers, in my opinion. But in college basketball, this is their program. It's their campus. Their coaches have less power today than they've had in decades past. past. But man, this is a big blow. Even if you don't like Duke, I saw people's comments all day today, and they're very inappropriate, but I can't read all those. But I figured that they were coming. But the point is that if you think that the second that Coach K walks off the floor for the final time as a head coach of the Duke Blue Devils, college basketball is worse off without him. Not saying it can't survive. I'm not being dramatic, but basketball's not better without him. Basketball is not better today than it was 2 months ago before Roy Williams retired. Basketball will take a step back when Boeheim retires, unless he has one of his 85 kids taking over the program, right? So big loss today for college basketball, but I'm kind of pumped to know. I'm glad that they're doing the farewell season for him. We'll see how that goes.
Fun story about Coach K. Coach K and Duke, the very first tournament I remember is them getting blown out in the national championship game versus UNLV. I remember watching that game with my brother and Duke losing by 30. And I was like, they were in the national championship game. They're supposed to be the number 2 team in the country. They lost by 30 to UNLV. The team had Stacey Yaldman, Larry Johnson, Greg Anthony, Anderson Hunt, and a ton of other guys that played in the NBA. And then that very next year, that same Duke team came back to the Final Four plus Grant Hill. And they were able to upset UNLV. And that started like the ball rolling for Duke basketball and winning championships and everything like that. And that team obviously had Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, a ton of guys that played in the NBA.
So many personalities, not just that team, but so many under his umbrella, man. It's unbelievable.
So like that's like started the ball for me in college basketball and everything like that. And there's no denying what Coach K has accomplished on the collegiate level, but also, coaching USA basketball, it's his ability to relate to players and get people to buy in because, before the one and done thing, before Duke really bought into the one and done thing, let's not forget, man, they still won a national championship. They beat Butler with a bunch of dudes that wasn't one and dones. One of the guys that's on the coaching staff right now, who is a candidate to be the coach in waiting, was on that team, and a ton of other guys that had a cup of coffee in the NBA. And then he transitioned to the one and done guys and still won championships. So he's won at different levels of college basketball. He won with the veteran guys, with the upperclassmen, with Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley and those type of guys. Got back to Final Four his senior year with Grant Hill. Then had the, other guys that weren't one and dones in the one and done era. Then he won during the one and done era. So Coach K, I may be a Duke hater, but that's just all just like fun and games. But there's no doubt in my mind that he's one of the best coaches of all time. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for him because he knows the game of basketball far better than I ever will. So it's nothing but love and respect for Coach K. And hopefully Syracuse beats them by 30.
Yeah, and there was a lot of rumors, and his relationship with Kobe, of course, was always really highlighted especially during the retirement year of Kobe. He talked about some of those monumental coaches in his career. Yes, Phil Jackson being right at the top of the list, but he said Coach K was actually probably the most influential coach of his entire career, and he technically only played for him during those Olympic stretches. Right. But he said that Coach K. I mean, what I loved about those Kobe pieces leading into his retirement was the fact that he talked about how close he was with Coach K. He would reach out to Coach K as if that was his college coach. Remember, Kobe, of course, went to the draft in '96, went to the NBA straight out of Lower Merion High School. But man, Kobe, hearing about that. But there was times where Coach K was rumored to go to the NBA. A couple times during the mid-2000s when there was that little transition of Shaq had left, Phil Jackson was out of the Lakers, and they were kind of in that transition period. You had Kobe and Lamar Odom. Now that group would go on to be a part of the next Laker dynasty, and they ended up, having Phil Jackson back. But there was that stretch where they had Rudy Tomjanovich. They were trying to figure out and find the right coaches. Remember, there was a weird coaching carousel going on. Yep. Who was the other coach that was between there? Either way, the point is that if fine. But Coach K was rumored at that point to maybe have tested the NBA waters, but obviously he stayed put. But Coach K in college, I'm glad that he never tested the NBA waters. I'm glad that he's always been a college basketball guy. Nick Saban's always going to have that little stint where he went to the NFL, where he went to the Dolphins, and things did not go well. And of course, people poke fun at him for that. There's not a whole lot you could poke fun at Nick Saban for, but people will always have that stretch when he was in the NFL where he wasn't Mr. Football. He wasn't the know-it-all guy. You know what I mean? Right. So Coach K doesn't have that little weird blemish on his resume because Coach K took a program and he won more games in 40 years than the program had won in the 75 years before him. He'd won 5 national championships in his 40 years at Duke than the 75 years before he got to Duke. So it's been an unbelievable run, but I'm really happy he's doing the farewell. I hope Boeheim does it too. I'm not a Syracuse fan, but I'm a Boeheim fan. I'm a Coach K fan. I was a big Roy Williams fan. I'm a big Calipari fan. But I'm not like I'm not a Kentucky fan. You know what? I just love great coaching. Bob Knight will always be my all-time favorite coach. I know he's a sketchball and all that stuff, but he's why I fell in love with basketball, because just that personality I just always found him very captivating in his interviews and everything. I remember watching Night School. I remember on ESPN when he was at Texas Tech. I mean, it was but I was like obsessed with that show. I was obsessed with seeing the behind the scenes of how coaches ran their practices, but very similar to Coach K, except Coach K doesn't have that personality and out in the public or out with the media the way that Bob Knight did. But I will say this about Coach K, and I think that, of course, typical social media, I just basically said that I think that he's another casualty of the transfer portal era. By the way, that wasn't because people know my stance on it, so that's where it rubbed people the wrong way. I said, yes, I do believe he's a casualty of the transfer portal era. The game is different today, and it has changed quickly. It has not been a gradual thing. It has been within the last 2 or 3 years that this transfer portal thing has really. No,
I think the game has been changing for a long time, and just incremental changes.
But he's done a good job adapting. But this time, it's like he goes, okay, I made my adaptation with the one and done. I'm not doing it with this. Roy Williams even said that was part of it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
I just think that, if you even look at everything that went on between the Big East and the ACC and everything like that, like the Big East Conference in basketball was the premier conference, and it got swallowed up by college football dollars. So if a college basketball conference like the Big East can basically go away and go to a channel that nobody has, everything's up for grabs. Everything's up for grabs. It's always about money. And now, I just think that now that the players have some type of control over their lives, like people are losing their minds and saying, no, this ain't the way. Well, what about the way where a whole conference basically just disappeared overnight? Okay, the ACC is happy because they were able to grab Louisville and Syracuse storied programs, but there's a ton of other schools out there that were left in limbo, like UConn.
Where are they now? Are they back in the Big? Yeah, they're back in the Big East, but they were in the American playing since. And
Kevin Ollie was the one that destroyed their men's basketball program. And to be perfectly honest, their women's basketball program, yes, they're still winning at a crazy clip, but they're not just locked and loaded like they used to be. A lot of these young women are going to South Carolina. A lot of them are going to Baylor. You know what I'm saying? So before, they had it on lock, they had it on smash. And then you look at UC. UC was in the Big East, and then they were left in limbo. So I just don't. I just have a hard time believing all right, this transfer portal, this is why I got to get out of here. Well, what happened to these major universities losing major dollars and destroying conferences? That didn't upset you, but the players have.
That doesn't impact that didn't impact Coach K's job. This is impacting. Well, let's pick up with that on the other side, because I'm not coming at this aggressive and saying that Coach K is like, screw these kids. He's 70-something years old.
Max.
And the amount of work that goes, I will say, I'm not saying Coach K has not had to work hard. He had to work hard to build the program, but there was a period of time, and I mean a period of decades, where Duke was on cruise control. We hear this about Ohio State football all the time. They select. They don't have to go and heavily recruit. I mean, they're recruiting. They're talking with these kids. They have to, scooch over. They scoot on the couch between Clemson and Alabama and everyone else, but they have a spot on the couch where everyone else sitting on the floor hoping they get a word in. These guys are. Duke was selecting for the longest time. It wasn't very difficult he's had to work very, very hard over the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know if last year was because the struggles were because of COVID or because, hey, I work hard to lay out a roster for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and now we're hitting reset every year. And I think that the older coaches, that's why, we're seeing coaches tap out and just say, I adjusted to the one and done. I'm not adjusting to this. Doesn't mean that it's wrong, but I do think for these guys being as old as they are and as old school as they are, there's no way. But let's pick up with that. We're on Facebook. Go to Facebook, search The Justin Kinner Show. Jump in on the comment section there. Your thoughts on Mike Krzyzewski calling it a career, and at least after this upcoming season. And Duke, of course, has the number 4 recruiting class coming in. They still have a chance to maybe maybe sent him out with the national championship. We'll talk about that more coming up in a bit. But your thoughts on Coach K calling it a career, 457-9464, or head to Facebook, The Justin Kinner Show. Jump in on the conversation right there. Also, Brad Stevens steps down as head coach of the Celtics on the same day that Coach K resigns. I know that Coach K and Duke has already announced who the next head coach of Duke is going to be, but I said years ago, back when Butler was in the Horizon League, back when he was there, Brad Stevens, I've been saying for a long time, that's the next head coach of Duke. That's the next head coach of Duke. I know Duke's already come out with who they want, but I'm telling you right now, they I think that plan was put in place before they knew today that Brad Stevens was going to resign. I'm very curious what the future of Duke is going to be as far as who the head coach is going to be. I know they've announced who it's going to be. We'll talk about that on the other side. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. We'll be right back.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a high near 68. Tonight's also going to be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a low near 63. And tomorrow will be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a high around 75. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Josh, very excited to learn that you're bringing the success of the Cable Academy to the Dayton market at the newly renovated hub. Can you tell me more?
Absolutely. Cable Academy is a full-time 12-week or part-time 24-week program that allows students to learn tech support, cybersecurity, or web development. Students can take the course both live or virtual, and all students are assigned to a professional job assistance coach.
Can students be ready in 12 weeks?
Yes, this is 600 hours of rigorous learning that allows students that don't have 2 or 4 years to learn, but have a passion for IT.
What about financing?
Well, we work with every student on options from grants, workforce development dollars to scholarships. Even better, 80% of our students qualify for our no job, no pay program. You don't get a job, you don't pay. This allows everyone to be aligned.
All right. How can people learn more or sign up?
It's very simple. Next classes start June 28th. Go to cableacademy.com. That's cable with a K. Click apply, and an admissions coach will reach out to answer all your questions. That's cableacademy.com. Cable Academy. Changing lives, one student at a time.
Cable Academy is coming to the hub. Classes start June 28th.
Just like your favorite hometown baseball team, your Enterprise Roofing team is all about protecting home. We've been locally owned and operated since 1926. So for high-quality roofing repair and replacement services you can count on down the stretch, call 937-240-2206 or visit roofup.com today. Enterprise Roofing is a proud supporter of the Cincinnati Reds.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls calls it drunk. You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Reds are on the radio. Every hit, every strikeout, every Reds victory. You can catch all of the action all season long right here on Dayton's home of the Reds, 1410 ESPN Radio. College football playoffs, Browns, Bengals, Buckeyes, and more. Catch the Keith Byers Show Mondays at noon on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Five national championships, 6 gold medals as head coach of Team USA, 15 ACC tournament titles, 12 Final Four appearances, and over 1,100 wins, 1,170 career wins, which, of course, is, well, that's right there, an NCAA record. Coach K going to coach one more season. It'll be his 42nd season of his career, coming up with the Duke Blue Devils. Look, they have the number 4 recruiting class coming in. Look, you always know what last year, I don't know if it was COVID. I still never like to let those big programs use COVID as an excuse, because if the smaller schools found ways to win during COVID, they have less resources and less ability to kind of get, like, that's what I mean. The bigger schools who had all the resources in the world to navigate through the pandemic in what I would assume to be easier than the schools with less resources, there's no excuse why the smaller schools navigated through it better than the bigger ones. And it wasn't just a Duke program. It was like Kentucky, it was North Carolina, it was Duke. It was a lot of those programs really struggled during that stretch.
I think it had a lot to do with the personnel on the team. I think it's a lot of young players on those teams. Kentucky and Duke dabble in the one and done guys. Wright State does not dabble in the one and done guys.
Really?
Wright State has a lot of upperclassmen, and that's why they succeeded last year. A lot of the teams that didn't succeed are those teams that just had guys that are sticking around for 1 year and trying to go pro and everything like that. So look at Baylor. Like, Baylor was loaded with seniors. Like, we rarely see a Power 5 program make it to the Final Four and actually hoist the national championship trophy loaded with seniors. And then you go ahead and look at Gonzaga. They were loaded with upperclassmen and one and done guy like Jalen Slugs. So you look at those teams, and I just think it just has everything to do with, hey, man, maturity from the guys that are on the team, expectations for yourself, and why you're truly there. Are you truly there as a stopgap? As a player, like, you're going to college because I have to go somewhere for a year. I might as well go to Duke and play for Coach K. Are you doing that? Or are you choosing to go to the G League? Are you choosing to go overseas? Or are you a guy at a Wright State or at a Baylor, like, yeah, I'm going to be here for a while. So if I'm going to be here for a while, I might as well give it my all.
Put the work in. And
that's how I viewed it.
And maybe that's the case. But nonetheless, I mean, it was one of those years. I mean, look, you get Gonzaga getting to the finish line. But, you look at the Big Ten, they're, I guess, not the one and dones, but they're the two and dones, I guess, if as far as that goes. But very strange nonetheless, as far as how all that panned out. But I think that Duke is going to be in a good position to, play extra motivated. I think that down the stretch, you're going to have these one and done guys on this Duke roster coming up, and we'll look at the roster here around the corner. But when you look at how all that shapes up, it's like those guys, they're going to, of course, be motivated to play because that's just what they're super competitive. But I think that right now, having the opportunity to really, rev it up towards the back half of the season, because you want to send Coach K out on top. You don't want him to be one of those 1 or 2 seeds that gets upset in the NCAA tournament, and that's the lasting memory you have of Coach K. I don't know what the right way to go out is. Winning a national championship, of course, but it's always strange when you bid farewell to play. Like Kobe, everyone was like, "Man, that was such a crappy way to watch an all-time great have his career end." That's like, actually, it's probably the best thing that could have happened, because unless you actually had a elite team to win an NBA championship, the second best thing to have happen is not lose in the first round of the playoffs. That has a weird feeling and a weird ending to it. Kobe not making the playoffs in his final year as an NBA player was the best thing that could have happened, because that game we knew was the last game. We knew it was, and it was more loose, and he got to go out there and it got to be about him, to where in the NCAA tournament, it's one of those where if Coach K gets upset in the first or second round, that's just a weird way to go out. But I'm not saying Duke should not make the NCAA tournament. I'm just saying. But
I mean, we look at how sports is, man. Most guys don't go out hoisting that trophy. I mean, I can only think of like three dudes that did that: Peyton Manning, John Elway, Jerome Bettis, like.
But it lined up with them though. Like they were old. Like they didn't have another year left in them, and they just got like
Elway had another year left in him. Jerome Bettis, he was just a goal line back at that point. Peyton Manning with all the neck surgeries, he didn't have to zip on the ball. I think if you shot John Elway up with enough drugs and enough duct tape, he could have got out there for another season. But like it's very rare that the all-time greats go out the way they want to go out, like go out on top. I mean, look at Jerry Rice. I mean, Jerry Rice, the best receiver ever to play the game. He ended up getting cut by the Seattle Seahawks. Like, so, I mean, it just happens like that.
But that's what I mean. It's like the reason like Peyton Manning and them, like they had nothing left. Like they were on their last leg anyways. Jerry Rice makes the Super Bowl with the Raiders. Yeah. I think with only a couple, that's where he should have pulled the plug, but he felt he had another year or two left in him, and that's where he went wrong. To where there's a lot of guys that, LeBron winning the title last year, maybe that should have been where he called it a career, because I don't think so, but everyone keeps talking as if, that he's just declining left and right. Maybe we might look back and say, man, he should have just called it a career after winning that championship. But he could, they're going to go out probably in this next game, not maybe win the championship next year. And then it's going to be one of those where you start looking at that. LeBron's probably a bad example. But the point is, there's just a lot of guys like Derrick Rose, right, is a prime example right now. It's not like he's not going out on his own terms. He's just not in a position to win a championship. Right. I know that they thought that having the number 8 overall pick was going to get a player to lead them to an NBA championship. But what? But we'll talk about that in a moment. I do want to bring this up about Coach K real quick. There are things that great coaches do that not just make them great, but prolong their careers and allow them to take their programs to that next level. We are watching a mirrored image of each other of Coach Krzyzewski and Nick Saban in college football. Two coaches everyone hates outside of their own fan base. But you talked about it, the one and done era. Duke hated the one and dones. And Coach K was at a pivotal point in his career. He could have called it a career. Could have maybe gone to the NBA. And instead, he's like, this is how the game is played. I got to adapt. Mm-hmm. So he adapted. He went the one and done route. And he won a national championship in the one and done era. And he went that route. And he had success in that route. You look at Nick Saban. Nick Saban fascinates me because he hates the way college football is played today. He hates that no matter how good a defense you have, you still can't stop the opposing team's offense. Somehow they found a way to stop Ohio State's, but they stopped themselves. But that's besides the point. But you know what I mean? Like, it's interesting hearing him say that. But rather than him just sit there and be stuck in his ways, you went from having a bunch of no-name quarterbacks at Alabama to now all of a sudden having these gunslingers left and right. You look at the way Mac Jones has played. You look at the way Tua Tagovailoa has played. The style of which they've played before, it was that boring style with A.J. McCarron, where it was, you played efficient, you played the quarterback position very efficient, you handed the ball off, you just played smart, quality football, right? Now they're airing it out with the best of them because Nick Saban's like, okay, I'm either going to be swallowed up in this conference or I got to adapt to what everyone else is doing. And now he, just like Coach K, adapt to what the rest of college basketball and football is doing, not just doing it, but dominating at it. And again, it's hard to win I think it's way harder to win national championships in basketball than football. That's besides the point. But Coach K, good for him for being willing to adapt. I think he is one of them. I don't think there's one particular reason he's retiring. Yes, he's 70 plus years old. Someone said that today on the Facebook page. They're like, well, he's old. John Wooden retired at 64. He's 74. And I was like, what are you talking about? He hasn't even started graying yet. His hair is, his hair is black, man. Like, it's as black as my hair. It's insane. But obviously, he's had to oil that thing to keep that looking that way, right? But the bottom line is, yes, his age has something to do with it. But Kev, what I meant earlier was they were on cruise control. It was just it wasn't heavy recruiting. It was just selecting. You could send a no-name assistant coach into any gym and to any Flying to the Hoop showcase around the country, see the Duke logo. Oh, Duke's here. Oh, yeah. That kid's going to pick Duke now. That's just that's how they were. But then when the game started changing and adapting, then he had to sit up in his seat a little bit more. And now with the game changing again with the transfer portal, it's not just recruiting the high schoolers. Now it's having to go over the top to make sure your kids on the roster are happy now, which you could say, yes, you should be doing that anyways. But I don't think these kids were that miserable before. I just think that right now the kids there's doors open that the kids didn't realize there was doors to 10 years ago. And I just think he's at the age now where, I'm not adjusting. I'm not hiring a a transfer portal coordinator. I'm not going to babysit the transfer portal. I'm not going to, if I bring a freshman in and say, I think you need to, sit this first year and really learn the game, I don't want to fear that he's just going to up and pout and take off and go transfer to another team because I'm not going to use him right away. I just think that that's the days of that are over. Yeah. And I think that's one reason he left. I wasn't saying that the kids are the reason he's leaving, but the game is why. The game has passed him by a little bit. That's one reason he's stepping by. And I respect Roy Williams for actually saying that in his press conference, that the game has changed, that he's not a fan of the transfer portal, and that's one reason he stepped out. My problem is when coaches admit that, Kev, people attack them for it. Good for them for acknowledging it. Rather than sit up there and rip these kids and all this and just say, hey, if this is how they're going to do it, rather than me be the guy that stands in their way to keep them from doing it, I'm going to get out of their way. Yeah. And if this is how the game's going to be moving forward, then fine. I hate it. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's ruining the game. I think that if you have great coaches like this leaving because of this, that's not making the game better. That's why I said yesterday, what's best for the kids may not always be best for the sport, but there will be a happy medium at some point once everyone navigates through this. But overall, I love the fact that they've acknowledged that and they're just saying, hey, this isn't for me. I'm not going to jump over. I'm not going to learn a whole new philosophy of recruiting and coaching during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has everything to do with it. His age and him saying, you know what, I'm too old for this. We've seen the Lethal Weapon movies with Danny Glover says, I'm too bleeping old for this. And that's probably
what he said. Say bleeping.
That's probably exactly what he's thinking. Like, look, man, if I was 10 years younger, 15 years younger, I'll be all gun-ho, man. I got grandkids. I want to go on vacation. Because trust and believe, if they wanted to stay, they could stay and milk the university for every nickel and dime and have a losing record to bat. And they couldn't do anything about it. You're really going to fire Coach K? You're really going to fire Jim Boeheim? You're really going to fire Roy Williams? Good luck with that. You'll be fired, AD. You'll be fired, President, before they will. So kudos to them dudes for stepping to the side. Like, you know what? It's a younger person's game right now. I'm not young anymore. I'm cool. I wanted to do it my way. I've had my run. I've been coaching here since the 80s and late 70s or whatever. So, okay, it's somebody else's turn. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with them coming out and saying, hey, man, I'm not a fan of it. Because everybody has the right to have an opinion about it. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with what Roy Williams said. I may disagree with it, but I'm cool with it. And I respect the fact that he said, you know what? It ain't for me no more. Hey, next up, I'll be in the stands cheering because I'm a North Carolina Tar Heel. I bleed the blue with you guys. Let's go. But as far as me being totally invested like that and having to do these extra things at that age, it's not going to be willing to do. And him going to AAU tournaments all across the country, like it's just totally different, man.
I remember him here with Luke Kennard when he walked in. That place, I mean, that was cool. That was really badass.
Like, I mean, you got to think, like you just said, dude is 70-something years old. Like, I mean, I don't want to call anybody that's 70 plus years old, but it's up there.
Old's old. They don't even. If they don't think they're old, they're old. I mean, there's a reason you're putting all the color in your hair. So you're old.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like,
I got some gray hairs for me.
It came out with everything with Brad Stevenson about him stepping down as the head coach of the Celtics and everything like that. He's valuing family time and everything like that, and more power to him, man. I mean, if you're in a position to earn as much money as those guys had and be able to spend more time with your family, more power to you. And more importantly, Coach K got all the victories. He got the championships. He's got the hardware. He's good.
There's nothing else to prove.
And his family's good. And that's ultimately what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if he wins a national championship this coming up year.
I'm coming back.
He would have won a championship in the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010. I mean, he would be the only coach to ever win a championship in 5 different decades. So it would be interesting if he can pull that off.
Run it back.
This coming up season. Sully from the Talking Out Loud podcast, he says, Coach K isn't even the greatest coach in his own profession. I need him to explain. I love Sully. I just need him to explain. Like, I don't know how there could be, like, if you hate Coach K because he's a Duke coach, fine. But I don't think we could say he's not a great coach. Like, that doesn't. You don't become Coach K if you're not a great coach. Like, I can't get on that. I just can't agree with that. Like,
explain yourself.
Yeah, I need to text him back and find out his reasoning. Let's do a little over under. Kev Nash brings us over under on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
O'Reilly. Ready for an oil change? The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are here to help. We'll make sure you have all the supplies you need to make the job quick and easy. Right now, get 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil for just $28.95. Plus, get a $10 gift card after mail-in rebate. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458. 800-481-1458 or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too.
3 doors down. The Better Life 20th Anniversary Tour. Saturday, July 17th. Rose Music Center at the Heights. Very special guest, Seether. For the first time ever, The Better Life played in its entirety, plus all the hits. Tickets on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. at Ticketmaster.com and Rose Music Center box office. 3 doors down with Seether.
I can't take this anymore.
I lost my job.
I feel alone.
The crisis text line is here to help day or night. Text 4HOPE to 741-741 for free and confidential support. Text with a trained volunteer to move from that hot moment to a cool calm.
For the ones who get going when the going gets tough. And the ones who know we're tougher together. For the Pathfinders breaking new ground. Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as fast access to experts and 24/7 customer support. Because we know you have people depending on you, so you can always depend on us. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Kirkland & Summers. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. On Twitter, make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER. And ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle.
All right, Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, back with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Still, to me, one of the most overrated players of all time. Just I've never seen a guy score 55, lose, and still get talked about all day as if he's just done something good. Russell Westbrook averages a damn triple-double 4 straight seasons, and we find every reason to bash him for not winning. Dame Lillard continues not winning, and yet we're going to lose our minds because why? He wasn't even the best player in the game last night.
Okay.
That's not, I mean, what? I'm just saying.
Okay. Ain't nothing I can say to change your mind, man. You're not a fan. That's cool.
It's not that I'm not a fan. I've like when LeBron can score 50, have 18 rebounds and 11 assists and a loss, and it's like, well, Michael Jordan, if he had that triple double, they wouldn't have won.
Well, you listen to those idiots.
All the time.
I don't listen to idiots, man. I watch the game and I make a judgment call off my eyes. I don't let other people's crazy opinions like a Skip Bayless determine how I feel about a player like that. Like if LeBron, like that game LeBron had against the Warriors in game 1 of whichever finals it was, where the one with JR didn't look at the clock. That was one of LeBron's best games of his career. He was outstanding, and somehow idiots found a way to knock his game.
I'm not knocking his game. All I'm saying is,
I'm just simply talking about like people that try to knock people that ultimately end up losing in an outstanding performance. That's all.
Well, it's a results-based business, just like everything we do, and it's just continuing not to. I mean, they're going to be knocked out of this round of the playoffs, and then it's off we go, and we'll get to that in a moment. Kev Nash brings you over under.
Kev Nash brings you over under.
First up on deck.
All right, number 1. Ben Simmons, he plays for the Philadelphia 76ers. He is now 5 for 20 from the free throw line in the series versus the Wizards. Over or under 3 made free throws in game 5 for Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons is the modern day Shaquille O'Neal, minus the dominance, minus the size inside, and minus but the free throw shooting he has down pat as far as his best shot. Look, that's a weird, like, not being able to shoot free throws is something I'll never be able to wrap my head around. As far as like, you're a professional basketball player, how do you not get better at free throws? Like that's strange to me. I get why the 7-footers like Shaquille O'Neal and others, like, well, okay, that's, they're proportioned differently size wise. I just don't get how a guard cannot figure out a way to shoot free throws. But I'm going to say, look, what was the over under again?
3.
So to make 3
tonight. And Embiid is not playing.
I think he'll make more, but he's still going to. I think I'll take the over, but he's still going to. He's not. Oh, Embiid is out. Yeah. That's why I think he's going to make more, but he's still going to miss a lot, if that makes sense. Mainly because you can't. It's one thing because that's what Doc Rivers was going to get annoyed with the media after the game and asking about why do you have him out there, which, by the way, I thought was a valid question. I mean, hell, the Lakers took Shaquille O'Neal off the floor late in games at times, in tight games. And so when Doc Rivers said, he goes, well, he's Ben Simmons. You don't take him off the floor. Well, the Lakers took Shaquille O'Neal off the floor at times in late close game situations because of that very thing. Reporters weren't saying that Ben Simmons was bad. They were just bringing up the flaw that is his free throw shooting ability or lack thereof late in games. But I think that with no Joel Embiid, he's going to have to stay on the floor late into that game. So I'm going to take the over, but it's not like he's going to have a great free throw shooting night because it's just not his strength, obviously. But you with no Embiid, you don't have the flexibility to have him off the floor as well. So I'm going to say the over, but it's not going to be an impressive night at the free throw line. It's just 3. You can't make more than 3. Oofa. I'm going to take the over.
I'm going to go over as well. I think that he's going to play a ton of minutes. He's going to get fouled a ton. He always ends up playing better, like individually when Embiid isn't there. So, his stats will pop and all those type of stuff. So I'm going to go over as well. And they also get the win over the Wizards tonight.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm going with the dub.
So without Embiid,
yes.
Teams don't play well without their second best player. That's what I found out last night. So there's that. All right. Next up, so I'm taking the over on the free throws, but a big night from him, and that'll be interesting nonetheless. Next up.
All right, number 2, with 99 days to the NFL season kicks off. Over or under 4 weeks until Aaron Rodgers is traded from the Green Bay Packers.
Don't care what anybody says. Aaron Rodgers has zero leverage here. The Packers are not going to win a Super Bowl with him next year, and they're not going to win it without him next year. So there is no panic on their part. In fact, he loses more than they do from a money standpoint. And from what I find interesting, and this is why we did this topic, I think last week or the week before, to where if this was a mirrored situation in Cincinnati, if Joe Burrow was holding out of the Bengals because he didn't like how they operated, and the fans, whose side would the Bengals fans take? Would they take Joe Burrow's side and be mad at their franchise, or mad at the franchise and go against Joe Burrow? Packers fans, from all the reporting I've heard over the last week, is that they've turned on Aaron Rodgers, that everyone is anti-Aaron Rodgers in Milwaukee, that they've taken the side of the franchise. So the franchise knows the pulse of their fan base, and if the pulse of their fan base is on their side, then they don't need to trade him, because right now they just need to kind of sit back and say, we don't need to, we need to basically just, it's a staring contest who's going to blink first. If you're wondering, and this comes from Laura Rutledge of Get Up in the Morning on ESPN, she says, if you're wondering what's at stake financially for Aaron Rodgers, if he actually did sit out the whole 2021 season, he would lose. It's all guaranteed money if you play.
Mm-hmm.
And if you choose not to play, if you're healthy and choose not to play, because again, if season-ending injury, you're still going to get your money. He would lose he would forfeit $22 million plus $93,000, which seems like nothing when you're talking about $22 million. But $23 million he'd forfeit, as well as $93,000 for missing all of mandatory minicamp, and then he would lose $50,000 for each day he misses of training camp. So I just think that the Packers have all the leverage. I know everyone thinks that the players do. I think that Russell Wilson has more leverage over his team over there because they love him over in Seattle. I'm not saying that the Packers fans don't love Aaron Rodgers, but he has no leverage here. He's the one. You mean to tell me your ego is so big you're going to say, that's fine, I'll lose $22 million. That's why I hate you even more. The fact that the fact that I'm trying to decide, okay, do I want to go out to eat tonight or save money? And he's over here like, $22 million, keep it. Like, screw you, buddy. No, I don't. I'm going to say, repeat it again. I want to make sure I'm answering this correctly.
99 days until the NFL season kicks off. Over or under 4 weeks until Aaron Rodgers is traded from the Green Bay Packers.
I'm going to say over, because I do believe he gets traded at some point, but I do believe that the Packers are going to sit there and hold this out as long as they possibly can. It could be next year's trade deadline before they move him, and it may not be where he wants to go. And if that's the case, then if it's not where he wants to go, those teams have seen his attitude. They're not going to bring him into a place that they're not confident that he wants to be there. So I'm going to say the way over if it happens at all, but I'm going to say the way over.
I'm going to go over as well. I think it's not going to happen until like August. Like, they're going to do it and put him in a position where, like, let's just even say it is the Denver Broncos. They're going to like pull the trigger, like, I don't know, August 28th. Right before the season starts. He has missed training camp all this time with Green Bay. He's just been working out on his own and everything like that. So he's going to go into a situation where he has no continuity, no reps with the guys on the team, everything like that. I think they'll do it, but I think they'll do it like, all right, we'll play your games, Aaron, but we're going to trade you at the very last seconds to make sure you have a bad season, because you just showing up and just playing football with a bunch of wide receivers you never had any continuity with can't be good for anybody involved. So I'm going to go with the over as well.
Right now, it's Kev Nash brings us your over-under. We're live on Facebook. Search The Justin Kinner Show. Like the show page, and you can watch us live there and jump in on the comment section. Vincent Waller on Facebook, Kev, says Packers are not, in all capital letters, trading Aaron Rodgers this offseason.
Is that our buddy from Beaver Creek that's a Packers fan?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't know who Vincent is. Okay, I don't. He's nice now. He wasn't nice to me at the beginning, but he's one of our main contributors here. So I appreciate Vincent, whether he likes me or not. I'm a big. I appreciate him. That's all that
we
matters.
Got a Packers fan that calls in.
Oh yeah, he gets all salty, man.
I would love to hear his viewpoint on this, man.
But I'm gonna say the over. Like I said, I know everyone thinks that the Packers, they have to move him if they want. That's a stubborn organization as it is, right. And I don't think they're going to become less stubborn. They've gone through this before with obviously with Brett Favre, and they're right now sitting in a spot where they have all this talent on this roster. That's the only thing I could say where the Packers will be wasting that in a staring contest with Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers is wasting a lot of talent as well. They're both wrong here. This is just one of the more uglier standoffs that we've seen in sports. It'll just be interesting to see who blinks first. Next up.
All right, number 3, the Knicks and the Hawks play Game 5 in Madison Square Garden. Over or under, one more win for Obi Toppin and his New York Knicks in this series.
The Hawks are up 3-1.
Yes, sir.
Over under one more win. It's going to push. They're going to win tonight. I hate to do pushes on these over-unders, but they're going to win tonight. We should have done the 0.5, 0.5 wins, But point is, no, that was on me. It's fine. So with that, I think they win tonight. I think the Knicks get the win on their home floor, and they'll send their Knicks fans home happy for a great season. Kind of put a cap on it. And then I think they lose in Atlanta in Game 6 coming up. But they'll probably So I guess that's taking the over then. So there will be one more. I'm going to say over because the Knicks win tonight and then they'll lose in game 6. Atlanta's way better. I think people were so focused on the feel-good story that was the New York Knicks. I think we wanted to buy into them being better than what they are. But it's just like everyone said, teams who win a lot of games, the best defensive team in the regular season, I put zero stock into that come playoff time because that just means you were trying and everyone else wasn't. And if you don't have the talent to match the other teams in the playoffs when they decide to start trying, you're going to be – that's all this comes down to. Atlanta is putting forth a much different effort defensively in the playoffs than what they did in the regular season, which is why you're seeing the Knicks look a little bit more like what you expected the Knicks to be coming into the season, which was improved but not number 4 seed.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm going to say the over. The Knicks win tonight. I think Obi had 13 points the other night, by the way. That was a career high for him, so congratulations. Shout out to him. You like to kind of see him kind of end the season on a high note. This isn't on the over-under, but I'm going to say I'll do the over. I think he has another career high tonight. I think the Knicks are going to be just clicking on all cylinders tonight. It's going to be a very fun last game at the Garden of the season. That's not a shot at that. I just think that the Hawks are better. And Trae Young, shout out to him, man. This is a breakout season for him, man. It's fun watching him play. He's a cool player to watch.
Ice Trae. I'm going to go with the under. I think the Knicks season ends tonight. I'm a big RJ Barrett fan, but he's been just as bad as Julius Randle. And the simple fact that Derrick Rose, who was robbed of 3 years of his professional career and battled injuries and still battling injuries to this day, is your second best player and the catalyst to your one victory in this series, speaks volumes about how Julius Randle is struggling, how RJ Barrett is struggling, how Bullock is struggling from the 3-point line. I think those struggles continue. And also a team that's known for their defense, especially with Coach Tibbs, they can't stop that pick and roll, man. They cannot stop that pick and roll because they got Clint Capella rolling to the rim every time. But that's not the problem. The problem is you got Trae Young and then he's surrounded by a bunch of shooters. So you got to stay out on the shooter. So it's really a 2-on-1 situation. So if the big man comes up, Capella's running to the rim, catching the oop. If he doesn't, Trae Young's pulling up from 15 or 30 feet to hit the 3 or the 2. So they can't stop that pick and roll right now. And I think it's going to be curtains for the Knicks. I think it's going to be a good game. Things going to be down to the wire, but ultimately I think the Hawks will win tonight.
The reason I think the Knicks win tonight, too, is for one, their backs are against the wall. They're facing elimination. And it's the fact that the Hawks have a 3-1 lead. We've seen... that's why the Nets have advanced, but the Nets lost that one game to Boston because it was like they were up 3-0. And sometimes when you're up 3-0, I don't think you're coming into game 4 with the full pedal to the metal type deal. And I think Boston was playing desperate basketball in that one game. And then of course, then the Nets were like, okay, we can't screw around. Let's just end this tonight. And I think that's what's going to happen tonight. You have a 3-1 lead right now for the Hawks. I think they're going to come in they're not going to be as amped up as the Knicks. I think the Knicks get a big win tonight. And then I think Atlanta throttles them in game 6. And that's kind of how it ends. But it's the psychology of, you know what I mean? You can always kind of read the psychology of these playoff series sometimes, because that's what I had anticipated the Celtics to get one with the Nets. And it was at the time I figured, because they're playing desperate basketball just like the Knicks are. They have a commanding lead. The Hawks do, just like the Nets did. And it's like, you don't come in, I don't think the Hawks are coming in tonight as amped up as what the Knicks are. And I think that's right there will be the edge. The Hawks are the better team, period. That's why I said at the beginning, seeding means nothing. I can care less about seeding in the NBA because it's the only sport I know where seeding doesn't reflect the true tiers of great teams in the play. Like the NFL, you went 13. Of course, the Steelers were an interesting cat because that's, the worst 11-0 team in the history of the league, right? Like they were the division, champs and everything like that. But like usually the NFL, Major League Baseball, the seeding in those truly reflects the tiers of the best team in the playoffs to the worst team in the playoffs. And the NBA, that's never the case. I mean, I still think the Lakers fully healthy, they're still the best team in the NBA, but obviously that's not the case right now. Next up,
speaking of the Lakers were favorites to win the NBA title coming into the season, which would have gave LeBron James his 5th championship, with the Lakers on the brink of elimination versus Suns. Over or under one more championship for LeBron before his career ends?
Over, under, and again, should do the 0.5 on this. That's on me too. I'll figure it. I think he has one more title in him. I don't know if it's going to be this season. I'm not going to say they're going to win the championship this season. If they do, if they can get past the Suns, then I'll say, okay, yes, I'll get back on that train. But they looked very vulnerable last night, like extremely. What happened last night, that wasn't just players playing bad. That was a group of guys that just did not give a fill in the 4-letter word if you want. We don't have a delay on the station, so there you go. But you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like an off shooting night for the Lakers. That was just I don't give a crap night. And you know what happened? You know why that game ticked me off last night is usually when a team misses their second best player, a lot of times you play elevated ball because everyone's like, okay, we got to step our game up tonight. We're shorthanded. Last night, it's like AD being out. It was like a message to that locker room. We don't have a chance. That's what's kind of alarming to me. I'm getting off topic here. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm going to say he will get one more championship. So I don't know how that's answered on this over-under here. So that's a push, right? So he will get one more championship. And with the way the NBA is right now, where super teams are rebuilt overnight in an offseason, I don't think that this Lakers team will look the same next year. I think another big star is going to be added. I think Montrezl Harrell and Schroeder and these guys are going to be out. I think they'll either be packaged or whatever to bring somebody else in, whether it is Steph Curry, whether it is Klay Thompson. Who knows who it's going to be? Could be Dame Lillard. Watch me become a Dame Lillard fan at that point, by the way. Dame time every damn night in Los Angeles, baby. I'm a big fan of that idea. Bottom line is I think he has one more championship left in him, and I think he'll come up one short of Michael Jordan. But, man, had this Laker team been healthy, I would have said 2. But this seems like a desperation year because I think they're wasting one of his final dominant years remaining in his career. But I'm going to say he'll get one more.
I'm going to go with the under because I thought this would have been the season for him to do it. And, I'm a big believer in, the whole line that injuries are a part of the game. And that's just what happens in all sports. And there's no doubt about it. Without Anthony Davis on the floor, just even if Anthony Davis is not playing offensive basketball, if he's in his fadeaway jumper mode and shooting threes mode and he's bricking out there, at the very least, Anthony Davis is still a rim protector. And you watched that game last night. It was practice. It was the varsity versus the JV. It was layup city. Like they were getting down the lane and the wide open threes, dunks, like highlight dunks. Like you just don't see that. So I'm expecting the Lakers to win on Thursday, but ultimately lose in game 7. But I don't see another championship for LeBron. What they got going on in Brooklyn, what they got going on with the Bucks, like I just don't see a lot of other moves out there for the Lakers to make. I've been proven wrong before. The Lakers always seem to make a move. I mean, they got Paul Gasol for, Kwame Brown. So, I mean.
I'm sorry. No, Kwame Brown. You got to be nice to Kwame. I mean, I think his hit list, I think he's hit everybody on that list. I think we're good. But
so I'm going to go with the under.
All right, and that was our Kev Nash.
Oh, I got one more.
We got another one. Okay, Kev Nash brings us over under number 5.
Number 5, Coach K just announced that he's going to call it a career after this upcoming season. Coach K has won 5 national championships in his 41-year career. Over or under. One more championship for Coach K at Duke.
Coach K has 5. All 5 of the Duke's championships in the history of the program have come under his watch. Look, I mean, right now they have the number 4 recruiting class for 21. They have guys coming in, Paolo Banchero, AJ Griffin, Trevor Keels, and Jalen Blakes. Again, all 5 stars right there as far as that goes. Look, the talent's there. That's the thing. Like, I mean, I'm going to say, I think it would be the best feel-good story in college basketball in a long time. So I'm going to go with, yes, they're going to get that championship. They will win this championship coming up this season. Keep in mind, and I'm saying this too, like I had asked Sully why the hate for Coach K, and of course the peanut gallery chimes in, not Sully but others. Like my favorite response here, well, the facts are the facts. John Wooden is clearly superior. That wasn't Sully's response. That was some other guy's response. I'm like, well, those aren't facts, those are opinions. That's your opinion, but nonetheless. So when it comes in talking about, of course, the championship disparity, the best team in college basketball rarely ever wins the national championship. That is like the biggest luck draw tournament. I mean, if you want to talk about, there's luck tonight in the Vax-A-Million drawing. I think that there's more luck to win than NCAA. That's why everyone that was crying about, oh man, UD, they no national championship for them because of there was no guarantee you were even going to get to the Sweet 16. And that's not because I don't think that UD team was good enough, but it's because the best teams in basketball rarely win it all the time. So that's where I'm at when it comes to that. But I think that Duke, of course, has a shot. They're one of the top teams, if not the best team in the ACC coming into this season. Of course, unless they pick up where they left off last year, we'll see how they kind of rebound from that. But I think you're going to see Duke play inspired basketball. You add the talent on top of it. I think that Coach K, this is going to be the most locked in that Coach K and his coaching staff has been since, probably in a long time. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to go all out. There's no more basketball after this season for Coach K. I think you're going to see a re-energized Coach K on the sideline as well. I think Duke wins the championship this year in his final year. I think he ends his career with 6.
That would be pretty cool. I'm going to go with the under, though. It's just too many
beat Syracuse in the ACC title game. How about that?
Well, Syracuse will have to make it to the ACC championship game before
Get on their level, man.
I know, right? under the Big East. Play that in the Big East. But no, I'm gonna go with the under. Just like you said, man, it's a total crapshoot. It is just like I have no idea, man. Let's keep it real, man. You got all these freshmen coming in on this team, and countless of other freshmen coming in on Kentucky and tons of other teams out there. The transfer portal is jumping. I have no idea what the rest of the college basketball landscape looks like. So I'm going to just simply go with the under because I don't know. I don't have a clue.
All right. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. That was Kev Nash bringing you over under. Hour 2 next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
O'Reilly. Ready for an oil change? The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are here to help. We'll make sure you have all the supplies you need to make the job quick and easy. Right now, get 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil for just $28.95. Plus, get a $10 gift card after mail-in rebate. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458. 800-481-1458 or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too.
Mattress Firm's best Memorial Day sale ever has been extended for a limited time. Shop and save up to $500 on top-rated brands like Sealy and Sleepy's.
For the ones who know that a little late is always too late. And that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part. Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. And our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Because it's my vision, I take the most studied eye vitamin brand.
Because it's my vision, I take the eye vitamin brand backed by 20 years of research.
Because it's my vision, I take PreserVision.
Age-related macular degeneration is the leading cause of vision loss in adults over 60. That's why the National Eye Institute did 20 years of clinical studies on the formula that's found in PreserVision. From the eye experts at Bausch & Lomb, PreserVision AREDS 2 formula eye vitamins contain the exact nutrient formula recommended by the National Eye Institute to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression.
Because it's my vision, I made a plan with my doctor that includes PreserVision. Find PreserVision in the vitamin aisle and look for savings on PreserVision AREDS 2 in your local paper. Available at Walmart.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
WING 1410 Dayton. Dayton's ESPN Radio. It's live, it's local, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Kirkland and Summers.
I hate when I get in a Twitter spat and we come back on the air and I don't have time to finish it. And then they think that they win the argument because I haven't tweeted back right away. Why the short commercial break? Any other time we have 20 freaking minutes in there. All right, welcome back. Look in there. It's the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, Hour 2, the show presented by, of course, Orion Sports Medicine. So off we go. This has started a weird debate on here, on social media about Coach K and Coach K going to coach one more season. And, the numbers are astounding, too. Like, the reason I always find Coach K so fascinating is even when we think about some of the best college coaches of all time, even in football, like college coaches in general between the sports, Nick Saban, I think, is the best of all time. When you look at just the amount of time that he's been coaching, the amount of championships, and the way he dominates at every level of the game. The one thing that I find interesting is that we've seen Saban do it at multiple schools, but multiple schools that have already proven themselves before he's even gotten there. Like Nick Saban is might be viewed as he the second best Alabama coach of all time, or is he the best Alabama coach of all time? But it's up for debate. Like there is no at Duke, it's Coach K and that's it. Right. He took them to that level. I mean, he's won more games in his 41 seasons as head coach at Duke than the program had won in the 75 years before that. All the tournament success, everything like Duke basketball, the brand that it is today, that's because of Coach K. Roy Williams, the brand of North Carolina basketball, that's not because of Roy Williams. That was more of Dean Smith's deal. And even before, you know what I mean? I
will say about Roy Williams, he did save the program.
I'm not saying these guys are great. Don't get me wrong.
I'm just saying like they were headed in the wrong direction when Roy Williams showed up. Like they had elite recruiting classes like Rashad McCants, Sean May, and everything like that. And they weren't winning anything. They weren't winning they weren't even making a tournament. Who was there? There was another former Tar Heel as their coach. Doherty. Doherty was their head coach, and he led that program into a brick wall. And he was able to turn things around. So that's why I give him a lot of credit for that, what he did at his alma mater. So,
and with that, that's why I've always said, though, some of these programs are going to be great programs. Like just because a coach comes in and doesn't have success, it doesn't mean that program's bad. It just means that wasn't the right fit coaching wise. But there are programs who have shown the ability for multiple guys to come in and win no matter what.
Right.
North Carolina could be North Carolina no matter who the coach is. That's been proven. Same thing at Kansas. Same thing at Kentucky. What has not been proven yet is at Duke. This is where I stirred things up a few years ago where I said, I'm not going to say Duke's not a blue blood, but at the same time, Duke is Coach K to where North Carolina is North Carolina. Kansas is Kansas, Kentucky is Kentucky. Duke is Coach K. Duke had a little success before Coach K got there. I'm not going to sit there and say that they were, but no one thought, 40 years ago, no one thought of Duke basketball as Duke basketball. Now, when you hear Duke, if I said, hey, Duke's head coach is walking, they've had 20 head coaches in Duke's history. Not one other coach outside of Coach K, if I said, man, that coach is walking in to come watch your kid play, no one's going to sit up in their chair and say, man, holy crap, he's coming here. But Coach K, that's different. That's, the Duke program's different because of him. But 457-9464, Kev, who we got?
We got James on the line.
James, welcome in, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
We've got a great topic here. Here's my thought on Coach K. So you compare him to some of the greats, right? Wooden, Bob Knight, Dean Smith, Adolph Rupp. The biggest challenge that he faced that those guys didn't is living in today's world and living in the one and dones and living with social media and how he, from an old school Army guy, has been able to adapt and persevere and still be successful. And I agree with you. He could actually win a championship this year. We'll see. But the adversity and the challenges that he's faced, those other guys just didn't have. And I think we got to give him a lot of respect for that.
I think every one of those coaches have faced adversity at different times. Like that's the thing. That's why people always say comparing eras matters when we compare players. But comparing coaching, there's things that Coach K faced that they didn't. That some of those coaches didn't face back then. But some of those coaches faced things or didn't have as many resources as what Coach K does now. If you look at the money involved on the books and off the books, So there's cheating's always been involved in sports. I know people. We joked about that earlier, but there's not one thing that there's not one thing that Coach K is allegedly doing at Duke that the other coaches across college basketball aren't doing either. Not saying it's right or wrong. All I'm saying, but no, you bring up a lot of good points.
So not to divert, but talking about cheating, what's your take on Sean Miller out in Arizona. Do you think he's guilty as charged, or do you think he's misunderstood?
Trust me, there's no such thing as being misunderstood. It's not about if he did it. It's about how much he did and how much was actually, how much he was caught with. The reports that have come out, I don't even get how he lasted as the head coach as long as he did to begin with.
I agree.
The bottom line is I think that the reason that the NCAA drags their feet on a lot of these investigations is because the NCAA knows damn well what's going on behind the scenes. They may not know all the dirty details. They may not know all the handlers, but they know damn well that they don't want to go investigating because there's a lot of handlers for one school that might be operating for multiple schools, and not really schools, but players. And there's a lot of weird, shady stuff going on. The NCAA doesn't want to open up a can of worms. I'm not saying that they'll never punish these schools and that there are third-party investigations going on, and at some point the NCAA is going to have to answer for these things. And maybe, Kev, you brought up a good point earlier. Is that what's going on? Does Coach K know that something's about to be, just the lid's about to be blown off as far as that goes? But
all that stuff with Zion.
Yeah, more stuff came out about that. And Zion's like, I don't care. Right. Like, my family don't care. But no, I think that the NCAA drags their feet with this, man, just because of the fact that if they go down on one program, everyone's going to be chirping and saying, well, this program's doing the same thing. Well, they're doing the same thing. Well, these guys are doing the same thing. It's just a whole can of worms. I think that's why no big school ever has the hammer drop down on them.
I totally get it, and that is an NCAA.
That's why Arizona would be, real quick, that's why I always thought that Arizona would be the prime school to bring the hammer down on. It's not a blue blood. It's not a premier program. If Arizona is out of college basketball for the next 10 years, college basketball is not, they're not on the ropes, with that. If you really bring the hammer down on Duke basketball, that's a brand that you're going to tear down for a good 5-6 plus year period. That's not good big picture. So that's, it's base level stuff. And I think it's very simplistic thinking on my part, but honestly, think about if they wanted to bring the hammer down on Arizona, that's not a brand that's going to hurt college basketball in its absence. Not having Duke for a decade because of bringing the hammer down, that's kind of one of those cutting off your nose to spite your face type of deals.
No, I agree. It's like SMU and the death penalty. Like that was a massive
That's an easy
thing,
school.
But
Yeah,
it really hurts. But so I guess my question is, I'll let you guys go to both Justin and Kev. Do you think that Sean knew this? I'm sorry. Did he know what was going on?
Man, I have no idea, to be perfectly honest, man. Coaches want to have that plausible deniability. Like, they're not the ones directly handing kids cash. If they are doing that, if there's something shady going on, they're not the ones actually calling up the prostitutes. You know what I'm saying? Like the coaches aren't doing that.
They got apps for that.
Did he know? Did Sean know what was? Did Sean know? Was Sean aware of the money? Did he know this?
I don't know.
Look, here's the deal. They set this up. They know something goes. They're not dumb to everything that could potentially be going on behind the scenes, but they have it set up perfect. How it's been described to me as in someone that works with AAU teams and works with some of these prep teams that has explained kind of how some of this stuff goes down. These players and their families, they'll go visit with the program. They'll sit down with the head coach, and the head coach, they'll have a little spiel. They'll have their conversation, and they say, "Well, it was nice seeing you. I look forward to seeing you again." They shake hands with the player. Now, so-and-so with the program is going to come, and they're going to be with you for the rest of the night. They're going to hang out with you for the rest of the evening. And at that point, the second that coach walks away, they are technically that they're out of that little realm of being considered a part of whatever happens next moving forward. Although if it happens under their umbrella, it's still on them, as we learned with Tressel, right, and we learned with Urban and everything else. But that's kind of how they do it. Like it wasn't who was at Louisville, Patino. Patino wasn't picking up the players and taking them to strip clubs. He was going all by himself. Oh no, but he was. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't physically the one taking the players there. Right. But someone within the program was. So no, they're not doing
cognizant. They're not doing it. Are they cognizant? That's what I want to know. Are they cognizant?
I would say you should go watch the movie Blue Chips with Nick Nolte, Penny Hardaway, and Shaquille O'Neal. Like that's how the coaches are. Like they know if they really care to know. But since they don't care to know, they don't know.
Put it this way: they don't have the itinerary in their phones for what the player's doing that night with the handler of whoever is taking them out that night. Put it that way. So
okay, I've not seen Blue Chips, but you recommend it?
Absolutely. Blue Chips. Nick Nolte.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Penny Hardaway, Shaquille O'Neal.
Adios, man. And now Penny Hardaway's at Memphis.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yep, and Shaquille O'Neal, he's in Papa John's commercials. He's on Basketball Wives. He's all over the place.
CNT.
They didn't even do a Basketball Wives reunion show.
Oh,
Jackie, baby. That's where it's at.
Goodness gracious, you should be ashamed of yourself.
That's it. We'll be. I don't even know what the hell the topic is, man. We'll be 457-946. We'll take more of your calls on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a high near 68. Tonight also going to be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a low near 63. And tomorrow will be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a high around 75. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
I'm CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger with a quick tip from H2O Wireless on stretching your budget and saving money every month. Start with your recurring monthly bills, and here's the easiest one, your cell phone bill. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile charge premium rates for unlimited data, when in all actuality, you have no need for that much data. H2O Wireless, on the other hand, is on the exact same network as one of those carriers, but charges you half. The average family of four is saving over $70 a month without having to sacrifice coverage. And listen to this, unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data for just $36 per month. Switching is as easy as swapping out your SIM card. You can keep your phone and your phone number. Here's how to get the best deal. This month, dial pound 250 and say keyword get H2O. You'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Dial pound 250 and say get H2O for this exclusive offer and start saving today.
O'Reilly. Ready for an oil change? The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are here to help. We'll make sure you have all the supplies you need to make the job quick and easy. Right now, get 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil for just $28.95. Plus, get a $10 gift card after mail-in rebate. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. I can't take this
I have
anymore.
nowhere to go. I lost my job.
I feel alone.
The Crisis Text Line is here to help day or night. Text 4HOPE to 741-741 for free and confidential support. Text with a trained volunteer to move from that hot moment to a cool calm.
I'm Dr. Andrea Russo, a cardiologist. Maybe you're waiting to talk to your doctor right now. But if you're having an irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness, don't wait. This could be a serious condition like atrial fibrillation, which can make you about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. If you're having these symptoms, don't wait. Talk to a doctor by phone, online, or in person.
Brought to you by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Today, I'm going to surprise my girlfriend of 5 years with something great for her birthday. A scented candle. I'm talking a good scent, like lavender. Not something lame like pine. I've been building this gift up too, telling her it was going to be something special. She made a joke about me knowing her ring size, and I played it off like she was on the right track. I even mentioned that her parents were fully on board with the one I picked out. She's going to be so surprised to get this candle.
Maybe clueless boyfriends just need a Snickers. Snickers satisfies.
At Napa, when it comes to serving you, our motor never quits. And when it comes to getting you the part you need when you need it, with next day delivery or same day pickup, our motor never quits. And when it comes to making a difference in our local communities by hosting fundraisers and food drives, our motor never quits. And when it comes to telling you our motor never quits, yep, you guessed it. Our motor never quits. That's Napa know-how. Same-day pickup and next-day delivery available at participating stores and on in-stock items only.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Kirkland & Summers. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com.
LeBron James has been in the NBA for 18 years, and he is one game away from finally mastering something that Michael Jordan mastered early in his career. losing in the first round of the playoffs. So keep that in mind. As what?
You love Michael Jordan so much.
I
think you love him more than I do.
I just know, for what, to be fair, yes, I do love Michael Jordan. Anyone who hates Michael Jordan is kind of weird. I don't want to get into the GOAT debate. We all know I won. I'm like Dame Lillard. 55 points. I mean, he's what you don't want your kid. Who says, hey, man, who cares if you win or lose? Just score 55 points. No, I'm joking. It wasn't. No, in all seriousness, that was a hell of a. I made my joke earlier, but seriously, that was a hell of a game. But 457-946 that's the number to call in and join in on the conversation. But nonetheless, the Lakers last night 115-85. Look, the cards were stacked against the Lakers and LeBron last night. But look, it wouldn't have shocked me had the Lakers lost, but it's not that they lost, it's how they lost. That's the big thing. And of course, I will say this. Look, LeBron, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. What was our over-under yesterday and all that?
We were way off on all of them.
Yeah, we were. I think all night. I think we butchered all of them, didn't we? I don't even remember what all our over-unders were. I'd have to pull that up. But nonetheless, I thought LeBron was going to go off. I thought the first half. I thought the first half, I think Morris hit a 3. He was 1 for 1 from 3, and he only played 10 minutes. It was the first couple minutes of that game. But LeBron, 24 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds or whatever. 9-19 for the 4, but he, 6-10 from the 3-point line. I think he hit 4 of those in the third quarter. I think LeBron had them pacing well in the third quarter. Every time they'd go on a run, but the problem they couldn't stop anybody. The Suns couldn't miss. The Suns were just on fire. I give the Suns credit last night, Kev, because they didn't take their foot off the gas. It was every time the Lakers, LeBron caught fire from 3. He was the only one doing anything last night in that third quarter. And every time the Lakers started to go on a little mini run, they'd cut it to within 26. And I'm like, man, you cut that to in the NBA. Anything 20 points is not a big deficit. 30 is one of those where it seems like the game's out of hand. But I was like, man, when they got it to 26, I'm like, if they can get that to within 22 or 20 heading into the fourth quarter, it's a different ballgame. But every time they would cut it to within at least 26, the Suns would counter with a 3. The Lakers would get a layup in transition. Suns would come down. They'd get an and one. It was like, give credit to the Suns, because at no point they had a 30-point lead. They didn't stop playing once. They didn't allow the Lakers to get back into it. I know a lot of talk today has been on you put 10 points up in the quarter. We're talking about teams averaging 100. Every team in the NBA this year averaged over 100 points. That's never been done. Every team in the NBA, actually, no, that's not true. That's happened the last 2 years. Last year I kind of threw out. Every team in the NBA is averaging over 100 points a game, and the Lakers put 10 points up in the second quarter yesterday. Unfreaking believable. But nonetheless, that's a game you want to forget about. But I said this earlier. There's something going on. When a star player goes down, like the Suns, when Chris Paul went out in that game 2 or whatever, other guys stepped up, or game 1. Other players stepped up and started making big play after big play after big play. It's not like, Chris Paul's out, so we have no chance. That's what it felt like last night. Anthony Davis is out. Screw it. There was no effort. There was no care in the world. Those guys, and this isn't the same championship roster as last year. It's not like these guys don't have fight in them. I mean, that's why Montrezl Harrell left LA for LA. Right. That's why Dennis Schroeder went, and I mean, it was through whatever, but that to me last night was very strange. And it's like, LeBron had that little spurt in the third quarter, but that was it. I mean, 24 points for him, 15 from Kuzma, but that was a silent 15, and a good chunk of those came late. Horton Tucker had 11, but I mean, outside of that, there was none, zero, zilch, nada. Hal Schroeder has 0 points. I mean, plus minus was minus 17. I know that's not a big thing to you, but when you score 0 points and your plus minus is minus 17, get off the floor, buddy.
I mean, I think the zeros across the board speak for themselves. I mean, I was flipping between both games and everything like that. And once I just saw the score just getting out of hand in the second quarter, my attention just completely went to the more interesting game. And, I would check in when the Denver and Portland game went to halftime and everything like that. And I just, in that third quarter that you're talking about where LeBron got hot, they were really just trading baskets. And when you're down 30 points, you can't trade baskets. You have to get some type of stops. And I talked about this before. It looked like the varsity versus the JV because the layup line was wide open. It was literally things that you're told in middle school basketball, pass and cut. and you'll be open for a layup.
Pass and stand around.
And that's exactly what happened with Phoenix. They passed the ball, somebody cut to the rim, and it was a dunk. I was like, what is going on out here? And so I can't sit here and say I watched that entire game. I watched the first half or most of the first half. But like you said, that second quarter when they only scored 10 points, it looked like, one of those situations where let's be real, like LeBron paces himself and, tries to get others involved. So when you're an opponent thinking about the corner shooters, it opens up the driving lanes for me even more later in the game and everything like that. He tried to do that. It didn't work. And to Phoenix credit, their shot blocker wasn't in there. So they said, we're not going to shoot threes unless you're Devin Booker. We're going to drive to the rim because apparently Drummond don't block shots anymore. So they were just taking it straight to him and just getting and ones. It got ugly by halftime, and I don't know anything that happened in that fourth quarter. Like, I know that they were talking about LeBron left the bench with 5 minutes to go and all that type of stuff. I heard them talking about that this morning on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin and everything like that. Really didn't have a big problem with it. I mean, he's banged up. That ankle ain't 100%. If you said he went back to go get some treatment, he went to go get some treatment. I had no problem with that at all.
Nonetheless, and so the Lakers have game so they're down 3-2. So game 6 coming up. It's at LA. Anthony Davis is out for the series. I mean, and if they get to a game 7, he might. I mean, but you pulled your groin.
That's duct tape, man.
That's not put some ice down there and just stay off your feet for a couple days. I mean, that's they're in trouble. But the problem is they're not. The Suns are not 30 points. Even without Anthony Davis, the Suns are not 30 points better than that Lakers team, and they were last night. And that wasn't because of a talent gap. That was because of a who gives a crap. And the Suns gave a lot. Care. They had a lot. That made no sense. They cared a lot. You know what the hell I'm trying to say. They cared a lot. The Lakers didn't, but you knew where the hell I was going with that. But So
yeah, it got ugly. It got real ugly. And you talk about AD and that growing pull and everything like that. You got to think about it. I'm not sure which leg it is, but it's the same leg. It's the Achilles on that leg. It's the hamstring on that leg. He has
multiple leg injuries
and the knee on the same leg. It's all on one leg. It's all compensation for the Achilles injury.
I was just going to say that sometimes when you're playing hurt, you stand differently. You run differently. You start putting more stress on other muscles and other parts of your leg or body that you don't even realize that you're doing. And eventually that makes those, parts of your body a little bit more vulnerable to an injury. And that's ultimately what's happened. Colin Cowherd brought up a good point today that, they brought in Anthony Davis knowing he was injury prone last year. He was not injury prone, but, he also benefited from the fact that you had a 4-month All-Star break. And had they not had that 4-month All-Star break, COVID break, then maybe they don't win a championship last year. So that's another reason the Lakers dominated is because when your star player like that gets a 4-month, which is longer than a regular NBA offseason.
Right.
That's why I wasn't big on spare me the whole, we got to turn right back around and go into this. You had 4 months between, it's not like you played a full 82-game season and then boom, 1 month off and off to the next one. But anyways, that's besides the point. Other news just came out real quick. Jeff Goodman, Goodman Hoops on Twitter says Duke assistant John Shire
has on the championship team.
Yeah, he's been approved as the next head coach of the Duke Blue Devils. What are you guys doing? Don't you realize in June, sports radio and media, they need the whole 2 weeks of who could be the next head coach? We were supposed to have a Brad Stevens conversation. They ruined it. We were supposed to have Jerry Stackett, not Jerry Stackett, but we were supposed to have all these former players, obviously Duke players, not. But what the hell?
They ruined it for us.
But of course, this has led to, that was the Boston Celtics thing with Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens. Two very strange situations today. Two big prominent names resign and within seconds announce who's going to replace them. That's strange. There's no coaching search for this. I have always thought Brad Stevens was going to be the next head coach at Duke. I've always thought that. And, this is another reason, too. What happened with the Celtics today. When Brad Stevens was being loyal to the Celtics earlier in the year, I'm like, don't do that. Why? I could tell where the Celtics season was going. I'm like, he's not going to be good enough to keep that job, or if he keeps it, he's going to be fired either this offseason or next. Technically, he wasn't fired. He was given a promotion. I mean, that's insane to me. But good for him. Way to play that game. It was strange.
Play the game like somebody else we know.
But had he turned down the Indiana job and then got fired, I was like, that's why I thought he should have taken the Indiana job. And good for Mike Woodson for taking that job and not doing the whole, I'm going to focus on the playoffs and focus on no, he got out. He's like, no, I'm taking that job, and good for him. And that was a good hire for Indiana. Indiana. Brad Stevens clearly made a ton of sense at Indiana. I thought he made sense at Duke, but you're starting to see teams be very loyal to, they like to keep internal hires. There's a lot of, that's the trend right now in college basketball, getting former players to come, and not just former players, but former greats. And I don't think Shire is a former great though, but he's on the staff. And I think that, do you like this? I don't know if I like Coach K saying, hey, I'm out and you will hire my guy, because this tweet goes on to say there was a mid-afternoon meeting just to rubber stamp Coach K's selection. It was a part of the agreement to coach one more season, because I guess Coach K wanted to just do what Roy Williams did. And that they're like, well, we don't have anyone like Roy Williams. They've had a guy in a position. They've had a guy just kind of waiting there.
Hubert Davis,
and former coach. All that. I forgot he was at ESPN. When we talked about him, I'm like, why does he look familiar? That name's familiar. He used to be at ESPN. Yeah, he was on that. But nonetheless, I'm not sure if I like this. Coaches get it. I guess Urban Meyer did it with Ryan Day, but like a Nick Saban, I mean, there was talks of that Sarkisian being the guy for him when he, steps away. I don't know if I like that. You want to retire, fine, but you don't get to be the athletic director or the NFL / general manager on your way out the door. But I guess,
that just goes to show what we were talking about in hour one about college coaches. When you are that type of level college coach, they fire the AD, not the other way around.
It's the coaches program.
Yeah. I don't want to be crazy talking about everything that went on with Joe Paul and Penn State, but look at some of those allegations that he skated away from because he's Joe Paul and he's brought in so much money for the university, his name on the library and everything like that. He's running the show. And there's very few programs out there that the AD actually has the power. You know what I'm saying? It truly is the big time football coach, or if you're a basketball program, it is the big time basketball coach.
How much power did Gene Smith have?
I think Gene Smith has
the president. The president chased both coaches out, and two different presidents. But I'm just saying, say what you want about Ohio State. I will say there is a little credibility there.
Oh yeah,
to the point to where there's been dirty situations at every program. But it wasn't Gene Smith cleaning it all up. I mean, Gene Smith, I kind of like that it wasn't him making the decision. The pressure was put on him to, I guess, sign off on the decisions. Right. But Tressel's gone because of the president, and same thing with Urban. Although there was there's a reason that, of course, Drake retired. Wink, wink, right? He retired right after that Urban Meyer situation because, of course, his approval rating on that campus, plummeted after that for obvious reasons. So very interested how each school is different when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm, the team that I follow in college basketball, Syracuse, we talk about, oh man, Coach K is old. Well, guess who's older than him? Jim Boeheim's older than him. You know what I mean? So it's always been a topic of conversation in the, chat rooms and on the boards about Syracuse basketball.
Killing you on the boards.
Who's going to be the next head coach? And everything that I read about Syracuse, they have no idea who's going to be the next head coach of Syracuse basketball. And a lot of people don't even like the way the program is heading right now. Look, man, yeah, we make it to the tournament. We make our little run in the Sweet 16, but what happened to our runs to the Elite 8 and Final Four and everything like that? And why is this happening? Why is that happening? And from my point of view, I think the assistant coaches really just don't have that oomph to get those primetime players anymore. I mean, you look at the lead recruiter that got Jerry McNamara, Hakeem Warwick, and Carmelo. He's the GM for the Detroit Pistons now. You know what I'm saying? You look at the guy that got Deion Waiters and Scoop Jardine. He's the head coach at Washington right now. So you got to have recruiters on your staff as well. And that's what makes what Juwan Howard doing up in Michigan so impressive, because he has obviously Phil Martelli, a former coach in the A-10. He has recruiters on his staff. He has former players on his staff, and he has young people on his staff that go to these AAU tournaments. So I think that the older coaches need to take a look and see what Penny Hardaway is doing, what Juwan Howard is doing,
stuffy
to add in some youth, because I think they get so locked into the way that they do things that walls them off from the ability to grow You know what I'm saying? Just because you're 80 some years old, if you're still going to be coaching and working, you still should be growing. You shouldn't just be closing your eyes to the facts. Like, look, man, things are changing. The recruiting portal is real. You're going to have to show up at these AAU tournaments if you want to get these big time players to come to your school. You can't just say, like, hope that your son's going to be a knockdown shooter and he comes to your school. I mean, I was reading a story about Buddy Boeheim that coach wasn't even recruiting his own son until Roy Williams offered him a scholarship. So
imagine that.
I don't know how true that is. Let me put that out there. But, you know, it's just like, hey, if you want to offer him a scholarship, I am. Oh, well, let me go ahead and get him here. And just me being a fan, I couldn't imagine how terrible we would have been last season without him. The dude was on fire last year. So I know this ain't Syracuse, New York. This is Dayton, Ohio. So let me shut up.
Yeah. And again, to that point, and we'll get to the phone and we'll get to the call in just a second. But here's the recruiting rankings. We talk a lot of college football recruiting rankings. I'm just to fit your point. Michigan has the number 1 recruiting class in 2021 for this coming up season. Gonzaga number 2. Mm-hmm. Tennessee number 3. Duke is at 4. But yeah, Florida State at 5. You know, Kentucky's at 6. Creighton's at 7. And Creighton probably would have been a lot higher, but they lost. Ty Washington, of course, left, but the plantation comments, really didn't do him a lot of favors there, did it? But Kansas at 8, Alabama 9, and Michigan State at 10. UD dropped back a bit. They're at. Where the hell did they go? They're at number 22. So they have the number 22 recruiting class for this coming up year, of course. I did see Dave Jablonski covers the Flyers for Dayton Daily News. All the commits for the 21 class were on campus, this week. So that's pretty cool. To the 937. So that's pretty cool. Real quick, kill that music. Let's get to the phone. I want to get to Mikey. Mikey's been patient. Mikey, how are you, sir? Mikey. Mikey, call back. We'll get you back to the front of the line. We'll get to the rest of the calls on the other side. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
I'm jumping in with my clothes on.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Excuse me. I know you have a 9 o'clock, so I'll keep this short. I'm the business suit in the back of your closet. You wore me nearly every day before your office went, quote, casual. I used to be the CEO of your closet. Now I'm just that one intern no one ever talks to. I always thought you'd circle back with me, get granular, keep me in the pipeline. But nada, nothing. Don't you remember the McKittrick presentation? You spilled coffee on me and I still looked amazing during the breakout talkback Q&A. So I think it's time for me to move on. I've got a great resume and I absolutely crush it in interviews, okay? Let's make this a clean break. Shift the paradigm. The only thing I ask is that you think outside the box here and do this. Take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
There are many ways to catch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. You can catch it live right here on 1410 Wing AM, or you can stream the show at wingam.com. But now we have another way that you can take in the show. You can now watch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live on ESPN Dayton's Facebook page. Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio.
Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, back with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. We are Dayton's home of the Cincinnati Reds. And, well, this is about the time that we thought we were going to start the show today. And because the Reds were supposed to play at 12:30, that obviously got rained out. Just look at your window and you'll have the reason why right there. But the Reds, remember what I told you about? I don't care about the standings. I don't care about the win-loss record for say. All I care about is how many games back you are. The Reds are a season worst 6.5 games back of the Cubs at the top of the NL Central as we currently sit here right now.
Another football score yesterday.
24-29. And I'm getting a little fed up with it has to be a Cincinnati thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but have we, and I'm not saying it's always right to blame the coach or blame the manager in a sport, but sometimes it's fitting. I have no sympathy for David Bell during this stretch because I keep hearing people say, well, front office wouldn't spend money on a shortstop. If you think that the Reds are a shortstop away from closing the gap of the minus 30 run differential, you have another thing coming. It's the pitching. You want to talk about the lack of pitching. There's still enough pitchers in that pen that the famous Derek Johnson should be able to do something with, right? We always, when things go well, the Reds fans are the opposite. Cincinnati fans in general, Kev, are the opposite of what stereotypes of most fans are. Where, when things go bad, they blame the coach. When things go well, you give credit to the players. But when things go bad, the fans, like, it's never David Bell's fault for anything. And I'm not saying, like, by the way, firing David Bell doesn't make this team better, but he is ultimately responsible. I'm getting tired of people yelling at me for, let me guess, David Bell's fault. Well, yeah, based on the history of, sports. I mean, that's just the nature of every sport. It's the history of all time. I mean, that has always been the case. As a manager, as a coach, you are ultimately responsible for it. Yes, you could say, you could sit there and say, well, ownership didn't give me this today. Maximize what you have. And that's my other problem is if the bullpen is so bad, Kev, why are we still pulling our starters 4 or 5 innings into a game? Mm-hmm. If that's your weakness, like this was so to make a Bengals comparison here. Last year, the Bengals offensive line, not very good. Obviously. And I said, well, yes, you may not be able to all of a sudden increase the talent level of the offensive line, but if you're Zach Taylor, you can manage the game differently and still protect Joe Burrow and maybe not drop him back as many times. There was a stretch of 3 straight weeks, all of which he threw for over 300 yards. He got sacked 10 times in that stretch, by the way, where he was dropping back 40 plus times a game. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you have one of the worst offensive lines in football, but you keep dropping him back 40 times. So my big thing is you may not be able to increase the talent of your offensive line, but you could still do little things in managing the play calling, of which how much you set him up to get hit. And that's kind of where I'm at with David Bell. I don't want to hear about your bad bullpen. Stop yanking your starters after 5 innings then. Stop giving them 4 innings to be responsible for each night. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the problem that I have. Your starters are your best pitchers. That didn't help. Sonny Gray last night was not very good. And Luis Castillo has not been very good. But then again, Sonny Gray's a very, very good pitcher. Luis Castillo was an up-and-coming pitcher. All right, Tyler Mahle was supposed to be getting better. Where's all this Derek Johnson magic that we've all been talking about? Because I'm just hearing a lot of excuses. Well, Luis Castillo, he's not having the year we thought. Okay, well, that sounds like it's on the pitching coach then. Oh, well, Sonny Gray, he's had his moments, but he hasn't been able to make it out of the 5th inning. Well, that sounds like it's on the pitching coach then. Oh, well, Tyler Mahle, he had shown glimpses, but, he hasn't really been able to crack the ball. That sounds like it's on the pitching coach then. Or it's on the manager. Yes, players are responsible for their production, but in the history of, sports, it's always been on the shoulders of the manager or the coach for if a player is not playing well. Like, for instance, Zion Williams, LeBron James came into the league. LeBron was playing really well. Paul Silas was the head coach. Actually, I was a big fan of his. He was one of my favorite coaches. I don't think he's an all-time great, but he was still one of my favorite coaches in the league. I just thought he had a cool aura to him on the sideline. You know what I mean? I'm a big coach fan. Like I think that the persona of your coach adds to the persona of your team, and I think that's a big deal. So as a huge Pat Riley fan and a Phil Jackson fan, they were just badasses. I love you look at the Spurs and Popovich. Like those guys are just badasses. Like you just look at Doc Rivers, same thing. You have him as your coach. The camera pans over. You just feel like you got something. And then, there's the Lakers coach right now that I'm just like, it just doesn't do it for me. But anyways, I'm all over the place. What was I even trying to say? Paul Silas got fired because LeBron and the Cavs weren't winning games. And it really wasn't Paul Silas's fault. It's because you had Ricky Davis and Darius Miles as the second and third best players on the team. I was going to say, I love Darius Miles and I love Ricky Davis.
Love his podcast with.
He has a podcast?
Richardson. Yeah. Yeah, Knuckleheads podcast with him and Quentin Richardson.
I did not know that. Okay, I'll have to check that out. That's pretty, yeah. But I thought he was great. Not great, but I thought he was entertaining. And then, of course, Ricky Davis. My all-time favorite Ricky Davis memory is he was a rebound away from the triple-double, and he throws it off the rim to get the rebound, and everyone lost their mind. I'm like, they literally lost almost every game that year. You couldn't have given them that one little triple-double moment.
Stern took it away.
Oh, he did take it away. Yeah. So anyways, the point is, I just don't understand why Cincinnati fans, and it's a Cincinnati thing. It's not like Bengals fan thing. It's a Cincinnati fan base thing in general for the Reds and the Bengals, where they constantly defend their coach no matter how bad they are. David Bell is not good, and Zach Taylor is definitely not good. So I just don't get it, man. Like, I'm not really calling for David Bell's head, but at least a little accountability would be nice. Like, we need to stop with the excuses of, well, they didn't give him this, they didn't give him that. In the history of Reds baseball, since the Big Red Machine in the 90s World Series team, the owners haven't given any manager anything as far as that goes, except he does have Castellanos. He does have Moustakas. He does have Jesse Winker. He does have these stars on this team that you're not maximizing, and that's the problem that I have.
So my question for you and every baseball lover out there, because I'm not a big baseball aficionado, since the way baseball is played with analytics, and they got their little card and they do what's on the card. They do what's by the numbers. What is the manager supposed to do? Like, what is he actually doing? Because, in football, coaches are listening on their headset for play calls and everything like that. Basketball coaches are calling plays. They're making substitutions and everything like that. What is a manager's job if they're only looking at a card that tells them what to do? And that's not a knock on any coach out there, David Bell included. I just don't know. I'm sincerely asking that question.
Well, Schlemmer and I have had this conversation before regarding this very same thing, because technically I'm saying David Bell is doing a horrible job and he's not doing a good job. Or is he? Because he is doing what his bosses tell him to. Like, if our bosses told us a certain way to do a radio show, and we know that that's not the right way to do a radio show, and we do what they tell us to do and we fail doing it their way, and our bosses get mad. Well, your numbers aren't good. And we say, well, we're doing it your way. If you let us do it our way, the numbers will be good. Luckily, we get to do it our way, and the numbers are good. But I remember there was a certain point in my radio career, I was told, you can't do it this way. You have to do it that way. You can't be too opinionated. You can't be opinionated on a sports talk radio show. What's the hell's the point of having a radio show if I'm just going to regurgitate, opinions of other people?
Right.
So if I would have done it the way I was told, it wouldn't have worked. But I could have, and by the way, that's not necessarily true. I did do it the way I was told at the beginning, and it did not work. That's why we went and we got a very opinionated Mark Schlemmer, because we said, hey, I want to mix it up a bit. I don't want to be a dry, boring, dull station where we just regurgitate the same talking points that every other host in the area does and all that stuff. Like, I wanted to have a little edge on the show. Like, I'm not a big fan of just telling people what they want to hear. If you're going to pay a host and the host is going to host a show, then give your opinions.
Right.
And if your boss wants you to give their opinions, then give them the mic. That's my philosophy on that. It's not going to go well with any future bosses if that's the case. But if my boss wants to tell me what opinions I can and can't have, which we have had that. There was a partnership we had with a particular outlet that wanted to tell me what opinion I could have and what opinion I could not have. And he threatened to end me and all this stuff. And I said, I refuse to be told what opinion I can have. I'm going to have my opinion.
What a glorious day that was.
That was a great day. It was a great day. It felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders that day. But you're not going to tell me what opinion I can and cannot have, because that's just not going to work. Now, it's not like I'm spewing like some kind of, cult information. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, unless the I hate the Bengals is a cult, I mean, maybe it very well might be. So my point is I got way off track a little bit, but it all ties back in. David Bell is being told to use analytics. The front office is investing in analytics. So David Bell would be wasting the front office's resources, time, and money if he refused to use their analytics and go with his gut. You see what I mean? So right. I could maybe skew it and say, okay, maybe David Bell's not doing anything wrong. He's just being a yes. The biggest thing is he's being a yes man. He's following what is being told from the front office. You have to, every bit of information we give you with these advanced analytics, you got to use it, even if sometimes they don't make sense. And even if you're losing, because now David Bell can go to the front office and say, you can't fire me. In the job description, you told me I had to do this, and this. I had to use this. I had to make the lineup based on this. We had to get pitchers based on this information, based on this spin rate, based on whatever model that they're using. So if they're losing with the players that they approved through their analytics, how is David Bell failing? I'm literally flipping my argument in mid-conversation here, but that's a good point, Kev, is he doing something wrong? It's a results-based business. Win-losses are all that matters. But at the same time, if you're doing what your bosses tell you to do, are you doing something wrong even if the results aren't there? It's like I said, to recap. When I first started, I was told I had to do the show a certain way, and I said it's not going to work that way. Like, it hasn't. That type of show has not worked in the past. It's not going to work here. Mm-hmm. You have to have a personality. You have to have an opinion. You have to bring something. Like, that's why me and Schlemmer work so well, because him and I both are two of the most opinionated people you'll ever meet, to the point to where we're obnoxious as hell half the time, and we're hard to handle sometimes. We get that, but it works. So with that being said, it's kind of the same thing. It's not going to work if you do it though. Well, you're going to do it my way, or you're going to be like, oh, luckily my bosses gave me the freedom to do it my way, and it's worked. David Bell has not had the freedom to do it his way. He has continued to do their way, and their way is not working. So I can't tell who's responsible for this. Ownership, David Bell, a conglomerate of everything. There we go.
That is the $1 million question, man. That is the $1 million question.
I mean, look, Francona, Right. If the Indians told him you have to do it this way, I mean, I'm not saying that you don't take direction or anything like that, but sometimes you just know. Like, I'm not very confident in my ability to do a lot of things. I'm very confident in my ability to do this show. So that's why if you tell me I need to do it a certain way, I'm going to be respectful and say, okay, if I have to do it that way, fine, but hear me out. Here's why I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know if David Bell's that kind of guy. I think Francona would say, no, I need to use a little bit of my feel of the game. There's a reason that the Indians are still winning ball games when they have no business winning ball games. When they are, I mean, Trevor Bauer is making more this season than the entire payroll of your organization, and they're still winning ball games.
Yeah, we're only 1.5 back of the White Sox for that.
That's what I'm saying. And like the Reds spent $160 million in the offseason the last 2 years, and they are 6.5 back in a declining division. So that's where I'm at with that. All right, we'll step away for a few minutes. Hour 3 coming up. And so ESPN, put out a list of the biggest free agent and offseason moves for every NFL team. Or not for every NFL team. They rank the top 10 offseason moves in the NFL. Not by team, but the top 10 as far as, the biggest splashes in the offseason. Are the Browns and Bengals in there? We'll find out on the other side. That's how we'll start things off in hour number 3. More of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth. Step out of the car, please. I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
What have you done for your marriage today? While you're thinking, here's what other people had to say.
My husband and my daughter and I went for a walk together.
Well, and it's going to be her birthday next week, so I've been spending time today making arrangements to make that extra special.
I called my wife on the phone and I told her, Sue, I love you. And I meant it.
I flirted with my husband like when we first got married.
I have carried my wife's purse.
What I have done for my marriage today is give my wife a break, take the kids out, have a good time so she can just relax.
I know I didn't fight.
What have I done for my marriage today? Wow. I don't know.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up.
What have I done? I'm actually giving my wife the rest of the day off from me. She's going to visit with her girlfriend.
What have you done for your marriage today? Try something new to make yours great. For ideas, go to foryourmarriage.org. A message from the Catholic Communication Campaign.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
I'm more resourceful than I thought.
My suit can still make an impression.
My video games are still game changers.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill,
it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Now my stuff gets a second chance.
And will give someone in my community
a second chance too.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. That's goodwill.org. This message brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Indoor baseball, anyone?
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
College football playoffs, Browns, Bengals, Buckeyes, and more. Catch the Keith Fire Show Mondays at noon on 1410 ESPN Radio. WYNG 1410 Dayton, Dayton's ESPN Radio. It's live, it's local, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Kirkland and Summers.
We just hurry up and get sports betting legal here in Ohio.
I got a question for you. Speaking of that, Do you think there'll ever be live sports betting at events, like say you like at a Reds game or whatever, and you could only bet on things that are happening at that game?
Well, there's going to be a ticket. You're going to be able to bet. Like there's like a for the Raiders right now. Obviously, that's part of that thing, and it's convenient because it's in Las Vegas. But I'd say within. Again, it's going to be a state-by-state thing on the, you have to wait for sports betting to be legal in each state. But I do believe that if the state of Ohio does get legalized sports gambling and, taken care of, I think you could start seeing those at Bengals and Reds games as far as that goes. So that'll finally be my chance to meet Pete Rose. Someone the other day said, do you have any advice for sports betting? I'm like, well, I don't do sports betting, wink, wink, because we're in Ohio, wink, wink, right? No, and I said, look, here's my advice on sports betting. Hear me out. Always bet against your team. If you want to go to bed happy at night, if you want to go to bed as a very happy individual at night, always, always, always bet against your team. I will bet against the Browns in every game, all 17 weeks of the regular season, because one of two things is going to happen, and both are a pretty good payout for me. The first one is I bet on the Browns to lose, and you got to ask yourself, how much is a Browns victory worth to you? So for me, I will always bet against the Browns. I will always bet against my team, and I highly suggest for you listening out there, you always bet against your team, because if you bet against your team and your team loses, you go to bed at night with more money than you started the day with.
Fair.
And if your team wins and you lose the money, you still go to bed happy at night because your team won. I feel like Bengals fans are going to be a lot more, they're going to win a lot more money this year than me. That's the one good thing about y'all being a last place team again. But right, isn't that a good philosophy? I think it's a great philosophy.
Not bad.
You always bet against your team, because that way I don't know about you, like when Ohio State lost that championship game, that pit in my stomach, I hate that. I hate that. When my team loses, it's the worst. When Wright State lost that gigantic lead with 6 minutes to go, my stomach, I was ticked. Okay. There's nothing worse than that. Like, Flyers fans, we have to go back to the, last season was kind of a dud. Let's go back to the year before, the Maui Invitation, losing to Kansas. It's like, that sucked. You felt pretty good because you just watched your team match up with the number one team in the country and took overtime to get to, but the loss hurt. But imagine if you would have bet on Kansas to win. Sure, it sucks your team lost, but you came away with money. All right. Now, if you're betting on your team to lose and your team wins, who cares? Your team just won. It's a win-win. I'm telling you, it is the greatest sports betting philosophy in the history of the world. It's Kenner's philosophy. Always bet against your team. You will always go to bed happy. Either your team wins, sure, you're out money, but I'm not going to lie. That's why you got to ask yourself, how much is your team winning worth to you? I got to figure out, what, $100? So I'm always going to bet $100 against the Browns every week throughout the season. And that I'm either going to end the night or the week with more money than I started with, or I go to sleep waiting to wake up the next day to run my mouth to you and all the Bengals fans about how my Brownies came away with the win. And if they lose and Bengals fans are chirping, I'm sorry, poor people. What's that damn little meme? What's that give?
Poor people are
hide your money. That's my philosophy. I think it's a great one. But
that's not a bad philosophy. That's one of the reasons like I couldn't get into fantasy football like that. I still play or whatever, but I have a hard time rooting against my team. Like, that's why, like, most of my fantasy football teams have a ton of Steelers players on them, because I can't be watching the San Diego Chargers play and, Mike Williams is out there scoring 10 touchdowns on my Pittsburgh Steelers. My fantasy team's winning, but my real team is losing. It burns me up inside.
All right, 457-9464. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. But yes, that's my sports betting advice for anyone out there. When that time comes, always bet against your team, and you will go to bed happy every single night, because either you're going to win money or you might lose your money, but at least your team wins. Well, the only thing you got to decide is how much money is a team victory. How much is my team winning worth to me? Because there you go. All right. So I found this interesting. Before we get to that conversation about the grading of the offseason moves for the NFL, the other interesting news that happened today, how about Brad Stevens, Kev? The big thing is who's going to replace Brad Stevens in Boston. couple points on this. I know he just took the Sixers job, and depending on how the Sixers run ends, I go after Doc Rivers again. I would love to see Doc Rivers back in Boston. I would love to see Doc Rivers back. I know he has a nice little gig in Philly. He still doesn't look right in Philly. I don't know why. You ever see a coach take a job like that still don't look right? Like Urban in Jacksonville still just looks very odd. I know you're not a wrestling fan, but shout out to AEW, by the way. Tony Khan, the owner of AEW or whatever, also the owner of the Jaguars or whatever, part of the family that owns it. They had Urban Meyer. They had a little pay-per-view over the weekend.
Okay,
and I never thought I would see a scene where Urban Meyer hands Chris Jericho a laptop to use as a weapon in the middle of a match in their office. And Urban Meyer even said, "Holy bleep." It was the coolest scene. It was like very strange to me to see Urban Meyer and Chris Jericho in the same video or in the same scene. And Urban Meyer sitting there watching Jericho beat down his opponent. He hands him a laptop and he hits him. Then you have Charlie Strong in the background. Jericho's like, "Throw me that football." So Charlie Strong throws him the football and then he uses the football as a weapon. Absolutely hilarious stuff. I love that they're kind of tying that in a little bit, but nonetheless. But Urban Meyer in Jacksonville still is very strange to me. It's going to be even weirder watching him with the headset on the sideline. Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah. You're unbelievable.
You know what? I'm cool with what Boston is doing, moving Brad Stevenson to the front office and everything like that. But I am a fan of new blood in the NBA. Like, I don't want to see a bunch of recycled dudes just getting rehired over and over and over again, because we've seen that new coaches can bring some type of new energy and win championships. Like, first year head coaches with their teams have won, let me think, Ty Lue, Steve Kerr, Nick Nurse. Who else? That's 3. Who just won the championship last year?
It was the Lakers with
Vogel. So that's like 4 straight years where a first-year head coach has won a championship.
Well, Vogel's been around a while.
But I'm just saying, like, with that team, you know what I'm saying? Like, Frank Vogel isn't like, one of those recycled dudes, but like, nobody heard of Nick Nurse before he was hired with the Raptors.
No one ain't going to hear about him again because they ain't winning again.
But I'm just saying, like, I'm a fan of new blood. Like, I just think, like, there's so many guys out there that can coach the game of basketball. Why not give somebody that's a chance instead of just hiring like somebody that's on your bench already? Like, so if you hire somebody who's on your staff already, are they truly hearing a new message? Because
like Steve Nash with the Nets right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he has zero coaching experience.
No. What I'm saying, like, okay, take this for instance. So the Clippers, they parted ways with Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers goes to Philadelphia. They promote Tyronn Lue. So Lue was on his staff not only with the Clippers, but with the Celtics as well. So, like, I'm sure Ty Lue has a different message somewhere along the lines, but like, how different is the message? Because I mean, that's his mentor, you know what I mean? So like, I just want to see some new blood, because I think that's a situation that, you know what I'm saying, we run into where you just get recycled coaches. Like the NFL used to do that all the time. Jeff Fisher was like the most recycled coach in America, but now you're getting tons of new blood in the NFL. Granted, a lot of them came from Sean McVay for whatever reason, but still it's other guys getting a shot. So I don't have a problem with young people, or not even just young people, new coaches getting a shot. So that's what I would want. I would want like a guy like Adrian Griffin. You know, he's Nick Nurse's lead assistant, or just try a little, do interviews. Just don't go for the guy that they feel most comfortable with. You know, spread your search out a little bit. Even try some guys overseas and everything like that, because
last time the Cavs tried that, David Blatt.
They went to the finals.
Yes, Coach LeBron took him to the finals, just like Coach LeBron took Ty Lue to the finals. Coach LeBron took what's his name to the final. I mean, unbelievable. But 457-9464. By the way, Ron chimes in. He says, Justin, that's stupid. How can I bet against my team? Actually, you should bet against your team, because your team will always be favored to win. So, I mean, he's a Bucks fan, so you know what I mean? Like, and the Browns were favored to win. I think they were the favorites, and I'd say 90% of their games last year. So if I pick against the Browns, I'm going to make good money if they lose. It just depends how you position the bet. So who we got, Kev?
We got Jay.
Jay, how are you, sir?
Hey, Justin, what are you going to do when you bet against the Browns and they get their favorite, they're a dog by 7 and they lose by 5, and you lose the game and the bet?
Dun 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 dun.
I'm boring with my bet. Just simple win loss, man. Just simple win loss.
But you win more money if you go with the spread.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm one of those. By the way, I go beyond just picking the spread. I like to do those like they're going to win between, like when Ohio State, I got a nice little payout on that Ohio State-Indiana game last year. Ohio State won, but I said Ohio State's only going to win by like one possession or whatever. And that was that had a good payout if I was actually betting on that, for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, entertainment purposes only.
You know they know where you work, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, look at my bank statement. Well, there you go. But no, Jay, what's up?
What are you doing listening to Saleh about college basketball anyway? We know his knowledge is very, very thin.
Who?
And you're talking about Coach K. Come on now.
Who?
Saleh.
What about Saleh? I like Saleh.
Oh, yeah. What did he end up saying?
Hold on. It's off, so you can't call it him bash Sully. I love Sully. What do you got to say about Sully? Sully's gonna find out. So you've already started it. I'm just curious.
I'm just saying. He says Coach K isn't a good coach.
No. He just said that he's not the best coach in his own profession because he said Wooden is, and I said, I could agree with that. I think Coach K is the second best coach behind him. Now he does think. And a lot of that disdain for Coach K comes from just Coach K is just not likable because he's at Duke, just like anyone that manages the Yankees. You don't like them, or the Lakers. You don't like the Lakers. I just think that's that brand that's just naturally hated. As far as that goes,
I don't like Duke at all. Period.
You don't,
or none. But Coach K is a great coach.
Oh, no doubt about it. Look, that's why I'm also glad that they're doing this little farewell thing for him. They're not doing it for him, but I mean that they're doing one more. That he is coaching one more season, and I think that the best storyline ever would be them winning a national championship, or at least getting to the Final Four. Get to the Final Four. Let his final season be in the Final Four. I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, I did have someone say,
I find it hard to root for Duke, though.
No, hear this. So this is one of the tweets I got that I was like, come on, give me a break. Hold on, I got to find it. This guy's name is Adam Gutbowler. Shout out to Adam Gutbowler. He said something about where'd it go? Oh, the fact when Coach K couldn't win a national title with Zion, that's how he knew that he wasn't a good coach. I said, the best team in college basketball rarely wins a national title. Like, it's the hardest tournament to win. It's the hardest tournament to win.
The odds are stacked against you. It takes one bad game and you're gone.
Oh, yeah. It's not like college football where
one bad half and you're gone.
When's the last time a team won a national championship in football that no one really thought would do that? I'm not saying it hasn't been done. I can't think. Ohio State in 14. When's the last national title championship team in football that everyone was surprised by?
Football, it's easier for those guys that have all the talent to win. You can have five-star players that are freshmen and sophomore, but you run up against a team that's got 5 seniors and juniors who've been together for 4 or 5 years, and it's hard to beat that kind of a team.
No, I'm with you. That's why I don't put a whole bunch of, and then, of course, some other arguments, Coach K is not even close to being as good as Wooden. Wooden had 10 titles in 12 years. Look, if you're basing everything just off title counts, that's very simplistic, and I think it's a weak argument. And again, I think Wooden's still the best of all time, no doubt about it, but I'm not going to put up with the Coach K slander. That's all.
Back then, honestly, UCLA, and we all know what was going off pay-wise there, they were just paying more money on the West Coast to keep all those kids home.
Coach, hold up.
How much did they pay Kareem to come all the way from Harlem out there?
They paid for his books.
They were paying for his books and a few other things.
So
there's no doubt. That's pretty well documented. It's just like what's going on in Arizona. Sean didn't know, but he did know.
Look, is there so many people have called today about Arizona? Is it just because the Archie, the Archie comparison right there, or at least the connection, I should say? Very interesting. It was a bad offseason for the Archie family. I tell you that much. For the Miller family,
it's just been in the paper. Not necessarily, just Archie. It's just been in the paper. It's been in the headlines.
Aye. All right, hey, Jay, are you a Bengals fan?
No, God, no. What's wrong with you?
You're a Browns fan, right?
We're Browns. We're Browns.
All right. That's what I like to hear, man. That's awesome, man. Good for you. All right. I just want to make sure you called in a little aggressive about the Browns, so I wasn't sure if you're a Browns or Bengals fan. I had to make sure.
No, I actually don't play fantasy football because it's hard to root against the Browns players, even. So it makes it a little tough.
See, when I have money on the line, I'm ruthless at that point. But if I was betting.
That's why I don't play fantasy. It's just because it's hard to root against the Browns players.
Yeah, I took over a roster last year, and my buddy told me, "Hey, you're going to take over this roster. It's a keeper league. You're not going to win any money this year." But I ended up getting like Stephon Diggs. I had a really explosive roster. I ended up working out perfect actually. I had Devontae Adams and everybody, and Stephon Diggs. Like I had Chubb, so it worked out pretty good. Had Lamar Jackson. That was like my weakest one. In fact, the only reason I won late and made the playoffs in mine is because I dropped Lamar for Baker Mayfield, and Baker had higher numbers than Lamar those last couple weeks, and I ended up making the playoffs. So there you go. Like I said, Baker's always been better than Lamar.
Question for you.
Yeah.
I know you're a Browns guy. I know that. Would you trade Baker and Myles Garrett for Rodgers?
You wouldn't have to trade both of them for Aaron Rodgers. The Packers don't have as much leverage as what everyone thinks that they do.
I understand that.
We did a segment a couple weeks ago. I said absolutely. If the Packers are willing to part ways with Aaron Rodgers for Baker Mayfield, you do it in a heartbeat. The Aaron Rodgers, this roster with Aaron Rodgers is a guaranteed Super Bowl team. They're as good as the Chiefs. Baker's good, but he's not Aaron Rodgers.
I think you'd give up your first and second for the next 2 years for that too.
Possibly. I mean, as this thing goes on with the Packers, I mean, I'm really trying to figure out, like, the Packers, the reason I think the Packers don't care about what return they get for Aaron Rodgers, because they're not trying to protect they're not afraid to show their hand that there's still issues between both sides. Like, they're coming out publicly saying, we're not trading him. Like, I find that very odd how public this has become as far as the statements from both sides, but who knows?
I've been a Browns fan from back when Leroy Kelly was there.
Okay.
So that tells you how old I am.
There you go.
And I would trade it in a heartbeat for that.
I just think you have to. I mean, there's a lot, and it's funny is I had asked the question about, if the scenario in Green Bay happens in Cleveland or Cincinnati, how would the fan base react? Would they take Baker's side or would they take the Browns side? Would they take Joe Burrow's side or the Bengals side? And everyone in Green Bay is taking the Packers side. They are against Aaron Rodgers. When I was listening to sports radio in Cleveland around this time that this was brought up, everyone said the Browns would be stupid to give up Baker Mayfield for Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, I think that's a foolish take. They said, we've waited so long to get Baker Mayfield or to get a quarterback that why would we give him up for 1 or 2 years of Aaron Rodgers? And I was like, so you would rather win 8 to 9 games a year, fringe wild card team for 10 years over winning a Super Bowl guaranteed with Aaron Rodgers? That's a take. I can't jump on that trade.
No, you give it up right now. I mean, I don't know how long I'll live, but I'd like to have that shot at the next 2 years Super Bowls.
With how much I drink, I don't give myself much more time either. So there you go. But all right, man, you take care. Appreciate the call.
All right, have a good one.
Later.
I have no clue why I said that. I don't even drink that much to begin with.
You outing yourself.
I don't drink and I don't bet on sports. I drink and bet on sports for entertainment purposes only.
There you go.
That's the disclaimer of all disclaimers. More of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash next.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a high near 68. Tonight's also going to be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a low near 63. And tomorrow will be cloudy with showers and possibly a thunderstorm, a high around 75. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
It's so on. The SiriusXM Listen Free event is happening now. Just press the Sat button in your car to hear over 100 channels, including ad-free music of every kind, plus sports play-by-play and talking news for everyone. Enjoy even more free when you download the SXM app. Hear expertly curated podcasts, ad-free extra channels of music for any mood, SiriusXM video, and the ability to create your own Pandora music stations. Don't miss out. Listen free now.
Get more miles on the road with O'Reilly Auto